meeting to order. Start with roll call.
Minnie.
Here. Brandon's here.
Hill.
Here.
Monahan.
Here.
Ford.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
And Jones.
Here. All right, do we have any additions to the agenda, or do we have a motion to approve? So moved. Motion is second. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next. We need a motion to approve the minutes from the regular meeting minutes from 5/15/2018.
So moved.
Second. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? And we got special meeting minutes of 5/30/2018.
Make a motion to approve.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None? All right. And no new bills submitted for
Nope.
Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna go to, we're not quite at 7:05 yet, so we're gonna go down one more agenda item, a special event application for Hartford. Come on. Yeah, exactly.
This is just for the regular event, right?
This is correct, yep.
Okay. So, we submitted for the special event form. It's next week already. Can't believe it already. But it's coming up. I just put down on the actual application the dates and the approximate times when we're starting and stopping. However, the best thing to get a full list of what's going on would be the attached schedule that you guys should have gotten. It will indicate times, locations. We've also put down the actual location where everything is. And I also indicated a letter behind it, kind of telling you also what's going on. The biggest change is the fact that we're going to do beer sales, but we'll discuss that on the next item. Other than that, we did add, not necessarily is an ad, but kind of is the West Central High School Band wants to do like a concert, which kind of kicks it off. They reached out to us, so they're going to be doing a concert already on Sunday in the park, which will kick it off. So if you guys aren't busy, we'll block our West Central Band and action. Otherwise, everything's self-explanatory. What kind of questions do you have for me? There, I'll throw it back to you guys.
I'll make a motion to approve application for special alcoholic beverage license in conjunction with special events.
Scott,
Yeah,
I'll be hold on a minute, because we're on this, just this special event application.
that's what I just thought I did. Oh, you just want to go special events and not the alcohol?
Correct.
Right.
Okay, I will
They're two
revert
different
that to say I make a motion to approve application for special events.
They did ask. to waive it.
Without fee.
Got a motion and a second to approve the special event application without fee. Discussion? All right, we'll vote. Nelson?
Yes.
Warren? Keel?
Yes.
Brennan?
Yeah.
Jones?
Yes.
And Monahan.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks.
We'll be back in a minute.
All right, we're gonna wait the 1 minute here and get to the 7:05 hearing. Try to get back on schedule.
No, this is something like- I'm sorry. I thought it was only one.
2 seconds.
My bad.
All right, I got 7:05 on my phone, so we're gonna go to 7:05 public hearing for first reading of ordinance number 654, application for zoning change, 303 West Third from residential to community commercial, lots 1 and 2. Okay, so a couple things as we're getting into this one. It's a first reading, a second reading on that. Typically, in a first reading, we will vote, but the vote does not necessarily count until we get to second reading, no matter what, it goes to second reading. So, the other thing I want to make sure we talk about before we have discussion on this item is that we're not necessarily, we're not talking about the use of the property, we're talking about the zoning of the property. Use is somewhat speculative. We're talking a little bit about should it be zoned this way or that way. So just want to give some clarification. If I cut anybody off as we start wandering into use cases, that's why. So with that, I'm going to open it up. Do you have any comments you want to make on it first, Teresa? Otherwise, I'll open it up for.
Well, it's just kind of self-explanatory off my report. Like Jeremy said, this is just a ordinance to change the zoning. Application was filed. Right now, that property is zoned residential, and they're asking to rezone it to community commercial. So in your packet, I put a copy of the map, and then some copies of our comprehensive plan, because you need to look at that to see what doesn't fit in with, you know, what we think the property should be along that area. And yeah, just let me know if you have any questions. I do know the petitioner's representative is here tonight and answer questions for you.
Brad, do you have some comments as the representative of the petitioner? I'll have you come up to the podium.
Sure, yeah.
Just state your name so Teresa gets it for the record.
Okay, I'm Brad Glazier. I represent the owner on this property at 3rd and Western. And it's currently adjoins a commercial property, A1 electric, mechanical. It's a vacant property. I believe has been always a vacant property, and with the exception of the former use as a storage building or some type of building. There's a slab on there now that indicated former use of it that way. Without getting into, you know, what the owner desires to do with the property specifically, it would be, you know, it would be a commercial use. So, just to touch on briefly what it is, it's storage buildings. It's personal storage. So that's what's been priced out and bid for this project. There were other studies done on what to do with the project or with what to do with the property, multifamily and this and that. They just came to the conclusion that they would rather use it in this way, and rather than adjoin residential to commercial property, to unify that whole block as commercial. So, other than that, without getting into the specifics of the building itself, we have plans available for that, but that's not why we're here. So,
No, perfect. And if we've got questions on that, we'll come back
Yeah.
and ask that. I mean, I think, and for anybody here that's wondering why we don't get into that, it's really about the zoning part of it. Is this property, how should we have our zoning set up? How should we have residential, commercial, all of those kind of things, and where should they be? So, not necessarily specific as to this building or that building. That's a little bit of a different discussion. Can run us into trouble if we're talking about use when we need to be talking about zoning. So,
right. I'm just looking at to the lot faces west onto Western Avenue, north to 3rd Street. So north of our property, we have single-family homes. East of the property, we have multifamily twin home. south of our property, we have the commercial enterprise, the commercial building business there. So we just feel with that corridor of Western Avenue, the way it's being developed right now, all the way down the line, all the way to the interstate, it just kind of makes sense to us to unify that block as commercial entities. So other than that, I would take questions or
Any questions from the council?
I think this,
Do you know when the property was purchased? By your
I believe about 18 months ago. You know,
Teresa, in that 18 months, unfair question, I'm gonna ask it anyway. Has there been any written complaints in regards to said property?
I think the only, I'd have to look for sure what the timing was, but the only thing we've really gotten with complaints on that property, and I don't know if it's under this owner or a previous one, is that we've gotten a few grass complaints in
Okay.
there where we've sent them letters and they mowed it, so.
Okay.
And I can't, without looking at the date of the complaints, I
18
can't
months, that's fine.
testify if it's,
There has been in the history past.
yeah, like I said, I can't,
Okay.
for sure.
Brad, with, personal storage, we're not gonna get into this, I know. I guess I can't.
I don't think you should
I can't ask that question, never mind. Okay, I'm done.
Okay. Do we have any other proponents? Or other questions from the council for Brad at the moment? Otherwise, I'll take a minute if we got some opponents that want to have something they want to say on it before we move to vote. Any opponents? Any opponents? Wish to say anything? Just have your first. Yep. Come on up.
Before we even go that far, I have a question. I was talking to Pam.
That way, everybody with the hearing device can hear
Can
you.
hear you?
Yep.
And I'm gonna take mine out because it's echoing now. I have a question to start with. I was talking to Pam Nelson, the county treasurer, in the last couple of days, and she has no property listed for 303 West Third in Hartford. So you may want to check into that as to what the real address is on that property.
So there hasn't been a house built there?
No,
So
there's
the
been
county-
nothing.
Yeah, so the
There's
county
nothing.
doesn't have an address for it, we address the lots. And once a
Okay.
structure gets built there, we send that address to the county. So they just go off the legal description of it right now.
Okay.
That's why they don't show
That's
anything.
why it was a question, because I didn't know.
Yep, that's what it is.
So, okay, just for clarification, I'm Kay Reed, you got that? And I live at 205 North Kingsbury, right behind said property. And I wanted just today to bring to your attention, first of all, the fact that the address wasn't correlating with what we were seeing when we looked it up on the county register. It's also my understanding that lots 1 and 2 and my property, in between those two properties, there's a plotted driveway, an alleyway there. And the reason this has come up is because I was asked to have wiring put through my property, and the reason they couldn't go into the other property, because it was vacant at the time, was they were telling me that it was the fact that it was an alleyway and they could not put the wiring through on the alleyway. So just a concern on that. Again, a concern about the upkeep on the property. I know that there have been numerous complaints. Last summer was, I don't think it was ever mowed. There was no weed control done, and it was not mowed unless there was a complaint issued on that. And then this has been plotted for residential for a long time. So having bought it in the last 18 months, they had to know that it was already plotted that way. So I'm questioning why we're changing it at this particular point in time.
Judy, or Kay, could I ask you a couple quick questions?
Sure, I'm sorry. I should have opened it up.
That's fine, that's.
I just wanted
quite all
to
right.
sit down.
You mentioned, and once again, I think this pertains, gentlemen, as far as the rezoning part of it, is there any issues with drainage of any sort that you feel need to be addressed if this is actually rezoned to commercial?
I have some concerns with the drainage on it. Yes, there is drainage that goes into the ditches on Western, but there's also drainage that comes back towards Maya and Joanne Genfox property. And we know that because at the end of our properties, it's often very wet in there. And if you look at it from my house and from her house, we sit up here and our properties kind of lean slightly this way. And then the property sits up here and drains this way and that way. So you really do need to take that into consideration when you're looking at this property and how it's going to be, you know, so that the drainage doesn't go all the way into that we don't get more drainage. We're already running at capacity. I would have to put in another major sub pump.
Okay. All right, I need to get educated. Mitch, how you doing? I'm sorry, I can't remember your name again.
Ross.
Ross. If we rezone this to commercial, would it have to be replotted, correct?
Yeah, I think we would have to receive a new plat
Right.
and review that.
Okay. In that process, is drainage taken into consideration?
In the plat itself, we don't typically look at drainage.
Okay.
We typically only will go through that drainage analysis on a site plan, which is not
So
required part of
whatever
the
gets
plat.
built there, they do have to
At
take
that
into account
point-
the drainage,
at
yes,
that
no
point,
matter
it would take-
what gets built there.
At
they-
that point, that's when that would take place.
That's when it gets addressed, yeah, when
That's what I
they
thought.
are ready to move forward.
Okay.
Because well, city ordinance and state law, you
Right.
cannot push extra water onto neighboring properties.
That's all I have, gentlemen.
Nothing more for me, Scott.
I don't think so at this
Okay.
point, okay?
Thanks.
I'd like to reiterate what Kay said about the zoning that it currently is. It's been zoned residential for a long time. And it's been purchased recently. And in my mind, if you were truly looking to buy property to build on, and then change your mind and wanted to go commercial, I guess that's one theory. But if you buy residential property in hopes to change it to commercial, it would seem that you would look for commercial to begin with. Because there's commercial land for sale in town. The city's got land for sale, Kevin does.
To jump on board with that train of thought, I mean, we look at pulling property out of floodplains and, changing zoning for daycares, on the front end, not on the back end. So I think I understand what you're saying is there's some steps that could have been done prior to purchase to get us to this point.
We have, and this was through planning and zoning, was it last week? Is that right? I know we had several planning and zoning members here tonight. Is everybody planning and zoning that has a comment on it at all or anything like that?
Tony Randall, Chairman P&Z. We have a very long discussion with input from citizenry that was at the meeting. At the end of that discussion, we ended up at a 3-3 vote. So it comes to you guys with no recommendation from P&Z. I think I can't speak for one side or the other. As where the minds were, where the votes went. Where I'll speak from my side of the vote, which ended up being the tying third vote. I looked at the map of the property and thinking of planning and planning out our city. And if you start at Menth on Western, which is where Sideline Diesel is at, it's 100% commercial zoning. You go to the next block to the north, where Bossman's building is at, and that block is basically 50% commercial, 50% residential. Then this property, the block it's in currently, there's 25% of that block, which is a A1 building, is commercial, 75% of that block is zoned residential. And the next block to the north is 100. So after listening to everything that was discussed that night, on my side of it was transitioning to residential makes sense here. It's 100, 75, 25, 150, 25, and no commercial. And so it makes sense to me to make that transition keep going that way. If this property was rezoned, all of a sudden, it would be a 50, 70% commercial block with a 50% commercial block in between that 100% and no commercial right on the other side of the street. So from a planning side, it just made sense to me that way. I think there were others on the board that didn't see that. In that respect, we're voting to go forward with it as making sense for the property.
So you're talking about buffering, obviously. Since you study the P&Z Bible more than I do, is there anything in that book that quantifies what you said as far as a percentage when it comes to buffering?
There's nothing, Scott, that fully calls out buffering or transitioning. It's called out the fact that you should always try to transition or buffer from one type of zoning to another, especially from a commercial, industrial type to the residential. A lot of times what you'll see in that, from a community commercial or a light industrial to a residential area, is you will see multifamily housing will kind of be that buffer that goes through there.
Yeah.
Which a multifamily housing is allowed in a residential zone with a conditional use. And that's the reason for that conditional use is sometimes multifamily is not a right fit in a certain area and there need to be restrictions put on that. You know, either way, if you go with community commercial, there's an awful lot of commercial activities that are available there. Another buffer to go from a CC or a light industrial to go to a residential is neighborhood commercial, which is, there are a lot fewer uses in there and most of them are all very neighborhood friendly, grocery stores, eating establishments, family, health, dental, those types of situations can go into that neighborhood commercial. So that's another zoning option that we have there is we try to transition or we make that buffer from a heavier use to a residential use.
Any other questions for Tony?
Thank you for bringing up the neighborhood commercial zoning
Thank you, guys.
Yes, thanks, Tony. All right. Do we have a motion? Do we have more discussion, more questions? Remember, it's first reading. We're going to see this again in 2 weeks.
I'll make a motion to deny first reading.
Second.
A motion and a second. Discussion?
I'm a contractor that built the first twin homes over there. That property was owned by the county from Kingsbury over to Western Avenue. I built the twin homes in 05, 06, or 95 or 96. The county owned was a maintainer shed and stuff there. Bill Gabbard bought the property, I don't know what year that was. Quite a few years after I had bought the property on for the twin homes or so. So the property was always probably never registered as commercial or registered by plotted in 2 lots, put the twin home stuff in there. And the other property had a maintainer shed on it. County used it as our maintainer shed, gravel pile and stuff, sand pile, up until 95 probably. And when Will Garrett bought it, his plans was to build another twin home and stuff in there, so he residential lots for the 3 units in there, and then he sold it. And this is probably the 3rd sale since Will owned it. So that's my knowledge of the property. So.
Motion and a second. We'll vote. Monahan?
Yeah.
Jones?
Yes.
Brennan?
Yeah.
Keel?
Yes.
Horn?
Yeah.
And Nelson.
Yes.
First reading is denied, but it will come back up on our next regularly scheduled council meeting.
Jeremy, I have a question, is that 2 weeks for sure?
That is not exactly 2 weeks. The next one is on the 19th.
The 19th?
Tuesday.
June.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. All right, next we'll move on to our 7:10 public hearing, application for special malt beverage license for the Hartford Jamboree Committee for June 15th through June 17th, 2000. Sorry.
Okay.
Yep. You guys want to sell your own stuff?
We do.
Okay.
As you guys know, we went and did our own 501c3, so we are our own nonprofit. So being that, we typically in the past have always had the alcohol sales go with the nonprofit. So since we are our own, we have decided to take that on. So that's where the application is coming from us. For the street dance, we have spoken with the Legion, or the Legion approached us. They are gonna also be selling it on their property, as well as Southwest. So we won't be the only ones down there, especially for the street dance, but as far as in the park, we will be.
How was it handled before?
Before, it's always been to like other nonprofits. I know the swimming pool did it for a while, and then sports complex did it last year.
Gotcha.
And the fire department did it on Saturday.
ID procedure, what you got in mind?
ID procedure is we do have our booth that we built several years ago. So we will have we do have witch hunt security coming out again for the street dance part of it. They will do the carding and the wristbanding, and then we do have a $5 fee that we'll collect as a committee. That's for the street dance, and then in the park, we will be having our own committee, and it'll be again wristbanded. So we'll card them and wristband them. So we still expect, if you're drinking, we still expect you to have a wristband.
And did you touch on Friday and Sunday? Are you still planning on selling on Friday and
Yeah,
Sunday?
and that would be the park still Friday night,
Still
and then,
wristbands?
yes.
Okay.
And then Sunday, we talked with the tractor pull folks. If we haven't sold it all, which the prime thing would be that we've sold it all. But if we haven't, they have asked us if we could as well, it'd be the same thing. We would card and we would wristband. Now, I know the tractor pull's a little bit different environment than the park environment, where a lot of times they do have their own coolers, so we can't control coolers necessarily, but that's how it was in the past as well. But if they are buying from us, we do expect to card and wristband. And the wristbands will be checked not to be loose.
Questions? You got, no, you got witch hunting, helping.
On
Do you have,
Saturday.
yep, do you have enough help, enough volunteers for all of the people in there,
I think so.
for sales? No?
I think so. We do have a few gentlemen from the fire department that still enjoy doing that still on Saturday. We're trying to spread it across the committee, so it's only a couple hours here and there. So spreading it well so that it doesn't get to be too much for just one person.
I make a motion to approve the application for special malt beverage license for the Hartford Jamboree Committee, waiving the application fee.
Second.
All right, discussion. We'll vote. Keel?
Yes.
Horn?
Yep.
Nelson?
Yes.
Brennan?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Monahan?
Yeah.
Great, thanks guys, hope to see you all there.
Yes.
I'm leading the fun walk.
Are you?
I just thought I figured I better throw that plug in. So if you want to have fun on Saturday morning, come and walk with the Joneses. Why does that not surprise you? Yeah. We're leading the fun one. That's Jesse's fault.
I see you walk, I call that a run, not a walk.
We're gonna have a bull arm. Oh, come on, step it up.
Thank you.
All right. Before we get too far out.
Okay, sorry.
7:15 public hearing, application for special event for the goat to conduct a lawnmower poker run on June 30th, 2008. And we got all that in the packet. This is something that we had before, maybe had some time off and now having it again. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I was reading.
Sorry. Yep. This is an event that was previously held,
Yeah.
just as it is. And I don't remember if there was one last year, but now we've got another event for
Right.
this year,
Yep,
right?
yep,
Okay.
exactly, sorry.
Okay. Okay. Any comments on that? Come on up to the podium if you do.
Yeah, every year we've kind of been asked by numerous people if we can put on the poker run. It's been done in the past for previous owners, and we think it'd be a fun way to do a fundraiser for the fire department as well as involve some of the other businesses in town.
Does anybody remember last year there was one, Teresa?
I don't think we had one last year.
When was it, sir?
That was Humboldt, and that ended up with a care flight and DUI arrest.
Do you know when the last one Hartford
I
had?
don't know.
We've had the go.
The
for
last
some
one the
years,
sheriff's office
so-
was involved in, ended up in a serious accident with arrest.
The goat hasn't had one yet, have they?
It's been what,
How long has it been the goat?
2 years.
I think it's been about 3 or 4 years, because when I went back to look.
My memory's not very good on this, but I believe the last time there was a lawnmower poker run, it did not end with a care flight, but it did not go smooth.
We
Craig,
had
you're,
some issues.
Craig, you're shaking your head.
I know we've-
like you were there.
Well, as a fire department member, I was there.
But, you know, and don't take me, I don't want you to take me wrong, but I think the last year there was one, it was lawnmowers, four-wheelers, three-wheelers, ATVs, golf carts, side-by-sides.
Boats.
So my question to you would be, what all are you going to allow and how are you going to manage it?
Well, so I did come across some like poker run release forms, some legal documentation.
I'm not worried about your liability as far as somebody getting hurt on their lawnmower. I'm more concerned about somebody being like 0.27 on a side-by-side in a poker run on city streets would be my concern. Yeah, because, like I said, I was sitting here when it went bad, and I haven't forgotten it. Well, I mean, it's all well and good to say, yeah, we're gonna get on the right lawnmower, and go to this bar and have a beer, and go to that bar and have a beer. But you sprinkle in, a dozen knuckleheads, and it goes bad in a hurry, and then that gentleman gets involved with some of his friends, and then it really goes bad.
Right. Well, and that was kind of why we just thought, well, we bring it to the attention and see if it was or not, and if not, so be it. I mean,
Yeah.
just,
So it's not something you necessarily are seeking out, it's people are asking you to seek it out.
correct.
Do you, in your release form, is there anything on there that says, and Tyrone, maybe you can expand on this if I have to, if you deem said individual under the influence to cease and desist? Is there anything of that sort looking ahead,
Yeah,
John and
right.
Jeff, because I remember, Marks, I remember that discussion, and it was somewhat of an issue, and puts you in a precarious position. I love the event, I think it's pretty cool, and it looks like a lot of fun, but I have seen some pretty crazy things happen. I don't know if have you ever been in one?
No.
Okay.
No.
I've seen them drive by my house, and obviously, they kind of come out of the woodwork a little bit. Is there any reassurance from you that you can give us that a lot of jocularity won't take place? Jeff's gonna speak up. He's right behind you.
Okay.
And this is the issue, that the only downside of this thing is that we've never been involved in this, and we've never seen it or anything like this, where I can see all the things that could happen.
I'm sure you didn't know what happened.
You're gonna bust my chops, I ain't gonna like that.
But I love big bag tournaments.
No, we know, I see the concern, I see the concern, and I just heard word from what, I talked to a couple of the patrons there, they said, you know, it went well for a couple of years when the fire department was involved, and that's why she threw in the quote unquote, the donation to the fire department, because they would set up the boundaries and they would be there on the perimeter taking a look at things in action. And I certainly see what you're saying, Scott, by, you know, the neighbor, the community driving by and they're seeing there, oh yeah, you know, and whatever, they're going by on their lawnmowers or whatnot. But I can see where we can limit, you know, what the side-by-sides, I think that's just totally ridiculous. That's not even the case, that shouldn't even be involved. I mean, I'm talking like lawnmowers, you know, I don't know, a big wheel, I don't give a shit. I mean,
I guarantee you're gonna have somebody show up with their lawnmower that's gonna go
But
at
I
least
think,
50 miles an hour.
well, I understand that.
Someone's gonna have one that's
Somebody's
specifically
got
built
something
for
like
this occasion, that's
Yeah.
gonna do 50.
If that's the situation, then I think it should go through some type of screening where I'm gonna say, oh, where somebody's gonna say, you know, you can't do that. Because, it's, and that's why, you know what, Dudley just did the mix of things, it is, you know, it's been brought up by several individuals, and we thought, you know, well, I mean, I know, because I didn't hear anything about that over in Humboldt, I had no idea that had taken place last year. That's kind of scary.
You got waivers to limit your liability, we don't.
Yeah, exactly,
We
so.
approve this thing, we're,
I think as it went on in the past, so say me and Scott are having a conversation in my front yard and I see a caravan of riding lawnmowers, three-wheelers and whatnot drive by and everybody's having a good time, craving food. And I say, you know what? I got a four-wheeler in the shed. So this is a perfect opportunity for me to get that out, join the parade, not being affiliated with what you're doing, but I can hide under the radar because I'm amongst the rest of you. And I think as time went on, there was probably the loosely sanctioned event, and then there were the people that thought, hey, I got something to ride, I'm gonna join in the fun. But I, for the life of me, I can't remember the details of the last time Hartford had one, but I remember it ended poorly.
Yeah, we got a phone call the next Monday from Preston, I think it was, of all the issues that happened.
Yeah.
But the last time we had one, and it was about 3 or 4 years ago, I can't remember.
So, and I honestly don't know how, I don't know how to move. I'm not opposed to the idea, I just don't know how we move forward in a controlled sense.
See, that's another good point you brought up, that's another, one of those intangibles that can definitely happen, and I can definitely see that happening, because you can't sit there, and somebody can't be monitoring it, you know, throughout the full route, and somebody just jumps in, I think it's.
How about this? Golf courses have marshals. How about you can somehow apply a lawnmower poker run marshal that would be in the midst of it and pull alongside anybody that might be, I mean, I know you'd have to, I don't know if we needed writing to actually do that. Larry, would we in any way, shape, or form?
how about this, I'll make a motion to deny application for special events permit. Lawnmower poker run.
If I can add a little bit more to this, I know I'm the downer of this whole thing.
Let's go.
Okay, I'll wait after more.
I'll say it just for conversation. Okay.
State law, and we deal with this with the motorized scooters that even the kids have, and we got a, it came up where we had Judge Larry Long give his recommendation or his judgment of what the law was as far as motorized vehicles on city streets, county streets, anything that's, you know, not on private property. One, they gotta be licensed, they gotta be insured. Doesn't matter if they're under CC, under 50 cc's, and they have to be a licensed driver. So, you know, how many people are gonna have liability insurance on their lawnmowers? And it doesn't matter if nothing goes wrong. And best intentions, and it's fun and everything else, what happens when somebody gets hurt, who pays for that?
And you know what, guys, I think right now, I just love it, you know, with all these things that have popped
You
up.
can blame it on me.
No. I think we're just gonna withdraw, because you guys have brought up a lot of intangibles, and there's a lot of things that just could happen, and it's not worth the risk. And we don't need that. That's,
Larry, is there any advice that you could give?
I don't think you should allow him or anyone that runs one to hire their own marshal.
Okay.
And I don't think you should hire a marshal. I don't think you want to take on that
that
responsibility.
liability there too, that would be another thing, it would just be, you know, like Bruce says,
And I didn't mean literally a deputized marshal per se. I meant it's a coined phrase on a golf course purpose anyway.
Well, if you were going to be having some type of event that was going to be bringing in a lot of people, I mean, one of your first issues is going to be what kind of security are we going to have in addition to what our law enforcement is going to provide. And I know you've had some big events and you've dealt with that issue, and I think that's the basic minimum model you want to follow.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second, so we'll vote on that. And if you choose to bring another application, that's up to you at this point.
Yeah.
So. All right, motion and a second, we'll vote. Jones?
We're voting to deny.
Voting to.
Yes.
Yep. Monahan?
Yeah.
Brennan?
Yep.
Keel?
Yes.
Horn?
Yes.
Van Dyson?
Yes.
All right. All right, thank you. Yep.
We can make it a walk, we can just bring our motion.
I don't know,
I was thinking of that while you were talking.
I don't even think that would go down crazy.
Yeah.
So it's a 7-point public hearing application for special event to hold an outdoor backyard bash at the Goat. A little more your style, right? At the Goat. On July 21st, 2018.
I make a motion to approve the application for special event permit backyard bash.
Second.
My only question is, as far as the noise ordinance is concerned, is 1 o'clock all right, Teresa? Or-
Well, and see, that's why they needed to come before you, because anything after 11 o'clock, you know, if there's noise, if we get a noise complaint, you know, they could get ticketed and fined or whatnot.
Yeah.
But there's an exception if they get a special events
That's all
permit,
right.
so they're good to go then until 1.
Okay. You got a band till 1?
What's that?
You have a band till 1?
Well, and actually, we were just talking, we might just do it 8 to midnight, because we're gonna have like some games and stuff, you know, in the afternoon, and you don't wanna drag it on and have people stand around waiting for the band, so maybe at 8 to midnight, and then therefore it won't be so late.
More discussion, questions? All right, motion was to approve. We'll vote. Horn?
Yep.
Nelson?
Yes.
Keel?
Yes.
Brennan?
Yep.
Jones?
Yes.
Monahan?
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
All right, next item up, Jeff Turn, offer to purchase city property.
How we doing, guys? Let's keep those guesses coming, all right? All right, I feel like I'm over-prepared for this, because obviously it's a big deal to us, but I wanted to just give you guys a sense. I've printed off stuff, because I'll pass one of these around. It's actually you guys might have this, but it's the plots over there with the pictures of our lots. And actually,
This one, there's one for each of us?
yeah, there's one for every one of you guys. And then this is the pictures of one of the sides with the pictures of the yeah, you just want to pass it along. Okay, there should be equal pictures for those sides. I'll pass it along too. All right. That fire wet? Yeah. All right, cool. So if you guys see there, the lot that does have the markings on it there shows the extra line where the fence is outside of what the property line is. And I want to go back before we go forward on this, because obviously this has been going on a while since that stuff got filled in over there and then it got dug back out.
But throughout the presentation, I really would like you guys to kind of put yourself in my position on this one. I think, we can come to a logical agreement on maybe how we move forward. Go back to when we built the house, the sprinklers and sod were put in first before we ended up putting in the fence. We had our back property line about, probably about 3 to 4 feet. There was a bunch of dirt, a bunch of wild stuff that was kind of nasty out there where they'd be putting in the sod. So we just paid an extra about $500 to have them kind of clean it up a bit when they put in the sod, put it over, and then on the north side they did the same thing. So about $500 out of our pocket, $400 we paid extra just so that you didn't have a bunch of mud kind of coming into our property right on the property line. We knew a fence would be going up too, so we just wanted to be more stable. Then when it came to do the fence, our guy was lined up to do it. He came out when he was trying to put the holes in and measure everything. He came to us with the concern that for us to fit a riding lawnmower through the north side of our house, we would actually have to go probably about 12 inches north off the property line. Otherwise, the fence wouldn't be strong enough to hold it how heavy the gate was. So I told him to hold off a week, and this is where it kind of gets sticky for me because honestly, through 5 years of living here, if I've ever needed a question answered or anybody to give me clarification or talk to, it's been Teresa. She's always been someone that's been very helpful to me on all fronts, and I think anybody that's worked in this city would agree on that. But in this case, it's a little tough because when I pushed off that for a week, I came down to the city and I asked Teresa if we could extend our stuff out. Now, she doesn't remember this conversation, and she has told me that she doesn't. She can't say on record that she does, but she would admit that anytime I've had a question, I've come down there to ask her about it. So I had that conversation about the fence going farther. What she told me at the time was that if we did do it at any point, if there needed to be stuff dug up, it would be at the cost of the homeowner. She looked and told me there wasn't anything back there at the time. Shouldn't be a problem. It actually at the time was Crestman's property. So I had a casual conversation with them. They said, we don't see any problem with it. This is when they were selling all those lots up there. Again, she doesn't remember, nor do, like I said, nor do I expect her to, considering how we're talking about a foot or two here or there on property that's unusable. So we end up moving forward with it. I call back my fence guy. He comes back a week later, digs the holes, builds the fence. I bet you, when we originally did it, we talked about sort of how it was going to be. He had to move it maybe an extra 6 inches, I remember, because there's a lot of rock in the corner of where our lot is, and he couldn't dig deep enough to get the holes. So as you see on that picture, we actually start, which would be the southeast property locator on my backyard is actually in the correct spot. We had Craig come out there yesterday with me and confirm that. So it starts there, it kind of diagonally goes out and veers a little bit to the east, which gives us, on a trajectory, you start it being on the property pin. By the time it reaches the 72 feet, we have 4.4 feet 2 inches by the time we get to the other end. So on average, you're about 2 feet per se throughout the back being over. And then on the other side, there's 48 feet of fence. We measured it. It was about 12 inches off from the one end to the other end of the fence was another 3 feet. So on average, about 1.5 feet throughout that line. So anyways, I want to get back to sort of how we got to this point. We look at, for us at least anyways, we communicate very diligently on our stuff with our houses, and none of this was done maliciously to gain extra land. If you look at the back of that property, if I wanted to be malicious, I could have gone another 15 feet before it ever got into the drainage. So then this filling fiasco came in where it got dug up, filled in, then redug back up, and it was noticed and pointed out that we were over the property line. I know the one objection from the city council at the time was that there were drainage issues there and that we would have to tear down our fence because it would affect the drainage. So I asked Teresa kindly to ask the city engineer to come out and let's see here. I got the email right here. You guys should just have a copy of all this as well. Pass this around, feel free. This is from Mitch, just showing he went out there and took a look at the land and determined that There are no drainage issues with that. In fact, we're quite far from there being any drainage issues on either side. One is just an overflow, as you guys know, the other one's drainage, but that there were no drainage issues. So he confirmed that part and the structure would not be an issue, and it's detailed out in that email. I'll also add, if you guys are thinking about, what about the next case? If somebody puts a fence over their property line, are we just going to sell city property when someone built on it? I'd advise to go case by case, and in this case, obviously, we weren't trying to do anything malicious. It was something that we had asked about and that we moved forward with after the case. It doesn't hurt any of the drainage. It's unusable land. I'm offering today to purchase that additional space. What we did was I had Teresa pull the property details. Again, I feel over-prepared, but you guys might as well have it at this point, man. There's all the details of what the property is valued at, break it down by square footage, and it comes out to be, what it's assessed at is $3.41 per square foot. Comparable to what's being sold or not sold that's sitting there for sale, I bet if we got it to $3.75 a square foot, that'd probably be reasonable, going up even from what it is assessed at. Like I said, I communicate very well. I host a radio show, so I don't mind asking hard questions or talking to people, and in this case, it's just been frustrating because we just feel like we've kind of gone through a lot when nothing was done, or like I said, maliciously. I think an easy solution to this is to allow us to purchase the land. We'll pay for the plotting so that it does get assessed correctly by the city. Last one, I promise I'll give you guys, unless I have to go more in detail, but this is just sort of the offer that we provided. Has the breakdown of what's on each side. I felt like I was in a math class there, trying to figure that out, but had the assistance of someone do that for me. So if we're talking about 100 and, if we're talking about 220 square feet total, times 3.75, we're at $825. As Craig told me yesterday, he didn't think it would be at all over 225, so we just kind of went on the high end just so that we don't have any discussions about it later. We're more than willing to do that. Tearing it down just seems to me to be something that just can be alleviated by doing it this way. Again, you guys are in this situation, how would you want it handled? And again, you weren't doing anything that you felt was wrong and that you felt like you had verbal authorization to do. So feel free to fire at me with any questions on this. I know I handed you guys a lot of information, but we've been preparing for this since apparently August last year. So my wife and I have had plenty of discussions and had plenty of details and notes and everything else. And the hardest part for me, honestly, is just the stuff about you, because she knows how I feel a lot, and I don't want to have to say that we had the conversation. She doesn't remember it, but that's what happened. So
I have some questions.
Fire away, man.
Your application for fence permit that you filled out, exact location of fence, I assume this is your writing, backyard just inside property line.
Correct.
That's what you wrote.
Correct. I would assume. About seeing.
Well, it doesn't look like Teresa's right.
Then I would assume you're correct.
And looking at your map, somebody obviously found the southeast property bid.
Correct.
So, can I assume that somebody found the northwest and the northeast pin?
We found all of them yesterday, correct?
No, when you applied for the application to put the fence up.
I would assume that they had the things when we built the house.
I'm asking you if you found the pins.
The flags that were in?
The metal pin in the ground that says where your property is.
Right.
Whose responsibility was it to find the pins that mark your property?
They were left up from when it was originally plotted. Like those white flags were in there when the house.
A white flag doesn't signify your property pin. Your property pin is a piece of metal hammered in the ground that is theoretically immovable, short of a track hoe, that marks your property pin.
Correct. There were flags marking all 4 property pins at our house that we never took down while the process was being done.
So with the,
So you were going off white flags stuck in the ground.
We knew we were going to be going over our property line. That's why I came and verbally asked Teresa for the authorization to go over our property line.
But that's not what you put on the application.
The application was actually filed before I asked Teresa, because the application was filed, then our fence guy came out to do it. And then after that, I came down and asked Teresa.
Okay, so you file the application just inside the property line.
Correct, yep.
Then you look at it and you're going off white flags stuck in your ground.
No, what I'm telling you is that we originally came in with the property pins already in place, right?
Yeah.
We filled out the application. I brought it into Teresa. Got it approved, so I called our fence guy and told him, hey, let's schedule a time. He came out.
But what was the theory to move it outside the pin? Because of the rock?
No, twofolds. One was because when he came out to design the fence, because of how big our house is on that property, on the side of the house, they needed an extra about 12 inches to
Get your
add-
board through.
to get the boards to make sure that the gate would be able to hang up there because how big it was. So they told us we needed to go about 12 inches farther that way.
On the north.
On the north.
Yep.
And then on the back side of it, we already had paid for that sod, so it was already back there. And when he tried to drill those holes through that, there was rock there, and his option was either to move it in a couple of feet or move it back a couple of feet. And so that's when we came and asked, we didn't want to lose property from it. We asked if we could just extend it out to where we had already paid for the sod.
So it made more sense to push it onto someone else's property. When your application clearly states you're gonna be within 1 foot of the inside of your property, and you have a 5-foot utility easement in the backyard, the right choice was to move it onto someone else's property.
I didn't know, so that's why I came and asked the city. Yeah, that's why I came down and asked if that was something that we could do, and I was instructed that it's currently Crestman's property, and that I went over to ask Crestman's that, because Teresa mentioned to me too at the time that the property had not been turned over to the Crestman's yet, or from the Crestman's, and eventually it would. And actually, I believe as that conversation happened, it sparked them to reach out to the Crestman's, because when I went and asked the Crestman's, they said, well, the city just reached out to us about getting this process moving forward to turn over the stuff. So, yeah, that's why I wanted to clarify whose property it was, and if we were gonna move that, how we could do it. And then when I came down and asked it, I was told that that was fine. And again, under the assumption that if they had to dig, again, that's not verbiage I would make up, if they had to dig, that, and then she actually looked it up, there was nothing back there that you have to dig for back there, so you guys can confirm that, I'm sure.
So one of the thoughts that I'm having here, Jeff, is we had a situation earlier this year, pretty much straight across from you to the north, where they started putting stuff in before the final plot was done. And so at the end of the day, they didn't do their homework, they didn't do their job right. And we made them move stuff, if I remember right, because they didn't follow the process, whether it's a contractor or homeowner.
And I did do some research on that over there, and obviously they did pour that concrete in there.
Right, but let me finish. So even if you had the conversation with Teresa, you didn't have approval. You didn't have a document in hand saying you could build on somebody else's property. That's the tough situation.
And I understand that, the document part of it, but if you're a homeowner in the city of Hartford, and you ask the people that own the property at the time in Crestman's, which they say they turn it over to the city eventually, you go and talk to the city and they say that you're able to do that, what else are you gonna do? You're gonna go call more people? I think you're just gonna build the extra foot, Like that's what's been frustrating to me, is that when we built the fence there, none of it was to just get extra property. It was to fit the fence, and I would have never told the fence guy to do that if I would not have been verbally authorized to do it. I would have just said, nope, you're gonna have to go a foot in, and you're gonna have to do that.
But a verbal authorization is not illegal.
So let me ask you this though, because I just want to ask this out of pure curiosity. If you're a homeowner in this city, who do you go talk to if you have questions? City administrator, correct?
Sure. That's an outlet.
I'm gonna jump in right now.
Let's do it.
Because I've worked with Teresa for 9 years. I think 9 years. And I have a really hard time believing that you came down or called her on the phone and said, this fence we're doing in our backyard, I need to push it 12 foot on the north so I can get my riding lawnmower through.
12 inches.
12 inches
12
on the
inches.
north so I can get my riding lawnmower through. and I need to push it on the east so I can avoid rock. The only thing I can see her, two things. If the city owned the property at the time, she'd just tell you can't do it without council permission. If Crestman owned the property at the time, she would tell you that's between you and Crestman's. And if you got a verbal from the Crestmans to put your fence on their property, and then they handed that property out to the city, then that's the city's property. Because I get along really well with my neighbors, but I wouldn't encroach on their property on a verbal, because in the event they leave, and that land gets sold to somebody other than me, then I'm dealing with new neighbors. And if those new neighbors don't like the agreement with the last neighbor, then ultimately I'm encroaching on their property rights, and I'm in the wrong, not the new neighbors. So I don't know when all this happened, who owned what, but all I know is the city owns that land and your fence is on it.
I'd like to follow up with that. I know that it's hard sometimes for people to believe maybe something that isn't considered what would be the norm reaction from someone. And like I said, with Teresa, I have never had an issue with anything that I've dealt with before. I got two wonderful sons, and I'll tell you on their life that conversation happened in this building, in that office. And I'm not sitting here trying to be accused of making something up. Because that's what you're insinuating there, and that's unfortunate.
I'm not insinuating you're saying that. All I'm insinuating is I've known that woman for a long time, and I've never, ever recall one instance where whatever she said wasn't either what the book said, was written on paper, or cut and dried.
Teresa, would you like to add anything to this? Because we're using your name a lot, and I just feel like, I don't feel like this is being fit. I mean, you and I have dealt with this a lot.
I've told both of you, I don't recall a conversation, and I'm not saying that you're anyone.
Right.
I will tell you, and I've told the council this too, I do recall when found out it is on the city property that I didn't see an issue with the fence being where it is because it's not approaching on somebody else's property, and I was gonna make you tear up the fence and take it out. Now the council discussed it, and they decided you do need to move it, and that's when I called and told you that, and that started this whole ball rolling and whatnot, so.
Yeah, I'm not disputing she told you to leave it last year.
No, this happened
I
2 years
did
ago in the fence. I'm telling you, that happened in that room, 100% unequivocally. The money of ripping it up isn't the issue here. It's the fact that I was verbally authorized to do it by a city official. And that to me should be good enough, good and gold. I didn't make it up, I did it anyways. I'm not trying to get something that I don't deserve. I'm trying to pay for it and play for the pot. You guys don't need that land, it's not gonna be used. The original objection wasn't even about selling the property, it was about drainage. And that drainage has been proven not to be wrong. And I want,
We had some instances last year where city officials were verbalizing some things, and this council made it very clear that that wasn't the direction we wanted to head. And so
Well, I don't think we should.
I think we need to stand by that as well. Let's go down the hypothetical trail. Let's say we approve this. What's your next step? Because just because we approve it doesn't make it legal.
my next step is to, just like it said by mentioning that thing in that email, he would recommend that it gets surveyed and plotted and we pay the additional taxes on that property. I'd like to pay you guys more than market value for it. Again, when the original objection is the drainage, and then the drainage issue is fixed, and now it becomes an issue about I'm on city property, I think common sense needs to come in here where if it was an encroachment on city property to be negligent and try to get a bigger yard, I would put it back 15 feet to where there's no issues into the drainage, man. I mean, it literally was about the rock issue and a fence thing. So, or about a riding a lawnmower thing.
Before we go too much further, I'm interested in Larry's opinion on this situation in particular and any precedent it might set.
Well, the first thing is it is the process that you follow when you get rid of surplus property. And the concern has always been, if you're gonna get rid of surplus property, that all of the citizens have an opportunity to acquire that property. In other words, there's not an inside deal for somebody. In general, to get rid of the property, you have to declare it surplus, and then you'd have it appraised by 3 property owners. And if it's under $500, well, then you could sell it with or without notice, but if it's over $500, well, then you gotta sell it with notice. And if you sell it with notice, my suspicion is that there's going to be a lot of people coming and saying, I'd like to buy that piece of property.
Just that little bit of land?
That's my concern, that I wanna buy that piece of property. This guy's pretty excited about it.
1 by 4 feet, he wants to buy that property?
Yeah.
Come on, you're a recent plan, because I'll tell you this, Larry.
Stop, don't do that.
Larry.
The last, stop, I'm talking, okay? The last thing you wanna have is have somebody buy that piece of property after it's been declared surplus and it's not you.
See, the legal folks that I talked to did not bring that up.
No,
I don't, no, I'm just telling you the folks
have
that.
your legal people call me. I'm trying to, the mayor's asked me a question, and he says, well, what does the law say? Short version is the law says, if you're gonna dispose of property of the municipality, of the government, any governmental subdivision, we follow a process, all right? If we're gonna sell it at auction, who cares? Everybody gets to bid. If we're gonna dispose it to another governmental entity, we don't care. We don't appraise, we give it to the school district or the county or whatever that may be. If we sell it through a real estate agent, there's a requirement, as I recall, that it has to be sold at 90% of the appraised value. All of this is designed to prevent somebody from cutting a fat hog and getting an insider preference and getting a piece of property real cheap, which is not, I understand what you're trying to do. I'm telling you, I think you ought to talk to your people again and say, no, if I can't control the sale and it's gonna come to me, or can I tell the city they must sell to me? I can be the only player. And I'm not convinced under the statute right now, and I was reading it up as you were talking, and I was also trying to access the South Dakota bid booklet, which is prepared by the South Dakota Legislative Audit, and they're preparing a new bid booklet, and I can't access it online, and I was gonna check and make sure what they said. So I see 2 issues for you.
Okay.
A, they gotta wanna sell. B, can you control that they gotta sell to you?
They brought up, when I talked to somebody about that legislative that you were mentioning, they were able to find that offline, you can. But they did say that because it was originally owned by Crestman when we originally built on the land, that some of that should be superseded in regards to who is able to purchase that land. Because it was originally, right, you know what I mean?
And if they've got a case that shows it, I'd like to hear that, because in my world, we've always practiced is once it becomes city property, by a deed, it doesn't matter who owned it beforehand. When we're gonna dispose of that property later, we follow the law that relates to surplus bid property.
And that came up in that conversation, and that was the only thing that they mentioned to me, because that did come up and I didn't want to go, but either way, I would almost take that risk if they want to buy that land and build something. That's what the conversation was with the person I took to talk to about it as well. I just will say that, and he might agree with me, if this ever went to court, most judges would probably tell us to come up with some sort of settlement, correct?
Boy, I think what happens in court cases is judges either, like you say, suggest you come up with a settlement, or a judge looks through it and goes life intelligence test, and it picks out who wasn't listening. You know, you failed, pal, that's your problem. You know, or it says, as relates to one of the people that's in front of the court, why is it this guy's problem, not this guy? You know, that's kind of the 3 things I see courts do.
Fair enough.
All right, more questions, discussion?
I just would like to say one more thing about the intent of it, and I know your objection to that, but let me ask you this. If you didn't believe you had done something wrong, would you ever offer to rectify it? Let me ask it that way.
No, well, I'm just gonna tell you how I am. Because I own 2 pieces of property in this town. I put up a fence, I put up a building, I remodeled my home, and if it were me. See, you say you don't feel like you did anything wrong. If I were to erect something not on my property, at that moment, I would feel like I did something wrong. I wouldn't feel like I did something wrong 3 years later when somebody said you erected something on someone else's property. I would think I did something wrong the moment I built something that I didn't have control of that property.
If Teresa would have told you you could build that and you did it, would you felt bad?
Well,
Because I'm gonna say this, and I hate to do this to you, Teresa, but Teresa has told, if I had to fix that fence, she'd pay for half of it out of her pocket. If she told me that, can you tell me that she didn't have that conversation with me? I'm sorry to say, Teresa, but that conversation happened. So there you go. To me, that is burden enough that shows I didn't intentionally do anything wrong. If she's willing to pay half out of her pocket, how is that my fault?
I'm curious, Teresa, did you tell him you paid for half that fence?
I did say I paid for it. I did feel really bad when I had to call him and ask him to move, and I said, if you need any assistance with it, I did, and I'm gonna admit.
And I hated to bring it up because I never wanted to.
I felt really bad because I did tell him he could keep it there, and then you guys said to move it.
And I hate to bring it up because she shouldn't be thrown under the bus for this, man, at all. It should be a much easier solution.
But you know, all in all, Jeff, Cressman's owned the property, okay, so you're putting this all back to me. Cressman's owned the property at the time. Did you get anything from them in writing from it?
When I went
They
to-
didn't even own the property
They
at that
did,
time.
when I went to the Crestmans, because I came down.
I've been quiet, but.
I know, I understand. I don't have any problem if you get emotional. I've been emotional through the whole thing. When I went to you originally and asked you about it, you told me the Crestmans still own the property. I've had 3 conversations with the Crestmans in my entire life. The first one was to negotiate the price of the home. The second one was to talk to them about their daughter picking up a table from us when we had moved, before the fence was put in, and that's at that time when that conversation came up. Thirdly, it was about an accident where the garbage truck hit us.
You should have had 4. You should have signed a contract right there and said, I'm purchasing this land.
I wish I would have known to do so. I agree with you. If I could have 3 years ago, I would have. That's an easy solution. I had no idea when the city told me to do it that I.
Yes, Larry.
Mayor, may we hear from Teresa? She
Yes.
didn't get to finish.
Well, no, I did pretty well finish. Like I said, you know, Cressman's owned the property at the time. How could I say, yes, you can, or no, you can't put it on there? You would have to go to the Cressmans and get something from writing, you should, from them. This is their property, not the city's property there. You know, like I said, I admit, when he came and asked when the city owned it, if he could keep the fence there, yes, I do recall that. I said, yes, I don't see any issues or any problems with it. You know, being on there, I felt bad that I was gonna make him rip it up. I did tell him, I felt super bad that I said that he could keep it there, and that, you know, if he needed help moving.
And I told her no. I said, I
You know,
don't
let me
know.
know. I did, and I totally admit that, you know. It's because this has never happened before in the past, or, you know, made this decision like he could keep it on city property. Well, you know, I'm always by the book, so, you know, I felt bad that I said, yeah, you can keep the fence there. And so, you know, I do fully admit that. But, you know, on the front end, it wasn't even the city's property at that time. It was the Cressman's property. Your permission.
I think for a minute, I want to have some discussion from the council, city staff, city attorney. Jeff, I'm going to have you refrain from.
Sure, man. I'm sorry, man. I get emotional. I apologize to all of you. Just get emotional, man.
Chat, talk, any further discussion on it, questions for anybody else?
Just one statement. Can I?
Sure.
I just find it interesting, and this is kind of going along with Mark's train of thought here, that when you found a problem, the solution was to acquire more property, not shrink the fence. Instead of moving the fence west and south, the solution was to move the fence north and east. I find that interesting, because that sets a precedent. You didn't do that to your neighbor to the south of you.
We couldn't have a fence on that side.
I clearly see a fence on the south side.
I mean, we couldn't have I apologize, we couldn't have the gate on that side. The reason for the north was specifically to fit a large gate there.
So you couldn't face a gate to the north with your fence running due east off the corner of your property because you wouldn't have been able to access that gate with the walk before?
You said on the north side? Yeah, because of the hill there, you could, they don't even mow it right now. I mean, they haven't because of how long it is, but it's pretty steep there, so. Right now, and before it was leveled out, and that property right there sort of dipped a little bit, but yeah, you could have, on that side there, we didn't even, it was just to move it out 1 foot, 12 inches on the one side, on the north side. That's exactly what they asked me to do.
You see the difference in thinking here.
Oh, I understand what you're saying there, but that's why I came down and asked first. If I would have been told, you cannot do that, you need to do it that way, my train of thought would have changed immediately to that. But when I was told I could, we just went ahead with the original plan.
But the Crestmans told you you could.
It was the conversation first came with her. The second conversation came with them, and it was a common conversation of, so the city just told me you guys still own the land. I forget the mom's name there, but she was the one I had the conversation with originally. And I said, we want to move it out this way and that way. And she said, well, yeah, it's actually going to be turned over to the city, and they haven't talked to us for a while. We haven't heard anything new on that, and that's when we said, or when it was college come, yeah, no problem, we're not going to have that land anyway, so it's just a drainage way, unusable land on the other side.
Scott? Okay, Jeff, do you feel that your contractor that put up the fence is at fault in any way?
No.
Okay. Who was our building inspector at that time? Paul. And have we conferred with Mr. Clark regarding this issue at all?
Yeah, I mean, he checks he gets all the fence permits and he goes out to check their placement. He did not detect that it was not on the property lines at that time. So he missed that.
Okay, so in essence, okay. All right, I'm gonna expand a little bit here. I have a hard time seeing a fence being torn down and reinstalled, if that actually would happen, because of all of the misunderstanding. The fact right now, in regards to Mr. Clark missing that, I feel that that's probably a city employee at fault. I'm not blaming it, but I mean, I think that we are probably somewhat liable in that case. And the fact that Mitch said that there's no drainage issues kind of clears that question that was initially brought up. The fact that Mr. Thurn is considering will pay for it along with the plotting and then so on.
I got a point of order question before you keep going. Is this an actionable item, being as it's a visitor? Okay, so we
No.
can't do any motions on this?
No, because he's gonna still have to bring a formal offer and so it's basically just asking you if you guys will consider, purchasing, allow him to purchase the land.
For a formal offer.
I'll wrap it up then and I'll say I'll consider it, yes.
I have a question. Maybe this will be directed at you, Larry. It's clear to me that for whatever reason, the fence on the north was pushed north to get a riding lawnmower in. And the fence on the east was pushed to avoid rocks. And in my mind, those aren't valid reasons to push a fence, but I have property that adjoins drainage that the city owns. Numerous people in this town own property that abuts drainage that the city owns. So I'm wondering, in your mind, how does it work if this goes in Mr. Thurn's favor And 2 weeks later, I come in with a proposal to purchase some of that drainage area that the city has that they don't need because there's plenty of it, and I'm turned down. If we establish that a gate for a mower and rocks is the bar where we set it.
Well, first off, I doubt that you're going to hear the story from you and other neighbors that
Oh, you'll be hearing from me.
is going to be as entertaining as what we've heard tonight. I mean, this is kind of entertaining, we knew where the property line was, but as someone pointed out, the fence was moved to allow the lawnmower to get out, and we knew where the property line was, and the fence was moved to avoid the pile of rocks. And that being said, it was moved out, not in, it was moved onto somebody else's property. Setting all of that aside, as it relates to property owners and shared fence lines and where the pins are, if you put the fence in the wrong place for 21 years and it sits there, the guy that gained on the side of the fence gets to say, that's mine. It's called adverse possession. And adverse possession is used every day in the real estate world, but there's one person you can't have adverse possession against, and that's the government. You can't ever go out and put that fence other than on the property line and onto the city's property and say 21 years later, that's fine. It doesn't work that way. And I want you to know that it's set up because of all the federal lands that we own. Yeah, we can't have squatters, guy build a cabin out in federal land out in Nevada and sit there for 21 years and say, no, it's mine. It just doesn't work that way. No adverse possession against the government. My first question to you is, what does it cost to move the fence? What are we supposed to be?
The cost to move that amount of the fence?
No, to move the fence and put it where it's supposed to be.
It'd be about $1,500.
$1,500.
That's what I mean, rough estimate.
My second question is how big of why do you need a riding lawnmower to go through there?
Because that's what the guy that does our lawn uses.
So that's how he gets in?
Yeah, we've hired somebody for 5 years.
He can't come in some other way?
No, that's the only way through that yard, to the backyard.
Can't come in the side yard, you can't cut a hole in your front someplace, have a gate where you can gain access?
You mean in a different spot in the fence?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming you could.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's where the fence was, that's what he said for the width is what he needed. Yep.
Mark, that's kind of my thoughts. I've also, I'll tell all you guys, I worked with Teresa for a long time, and her memory's pretty damn good. I'm the one that asked that.
I can put it in, I'm not gonna, there's a personnel issue that will not be discussed when it comes to Teresa and what played out when she talked to you about your fence and when the council found out about your fence. That's a personnel issue that nobody needs to travel down. I will say that I can hear Teresa saying, that's not the city's land. If you want to build a fence on Christmas land, that's your deal. And I can hear her saying, the fence is there, it's on the city's land, no harm, no foul. No harm, no foul until the council found out about it. And I'm sure that's why she feels bad. Because I think her opinion is different than some of the people on the council. But I find it really hard to believe that if you came in and said, you know what, Teresa, the guy that mows my backyard has a rider and we gotta stretch his gate out to get his rider through, and there's rocks in the back, so we need to move the pole to miss the rocks. I find it really hard to believe that she said, just push it wherever you need to push it and it'll be good.
That's not what I said she said.
That's what I heard you say.
Well, let me reiterate what she said. What I said was I came in and asked her, she told me that it was Crestman's property. I went and asked the Crestmans about it in a casual conversation, and they told me it was gonna be turned over to the city sooner than later. That's when I talked to Teresa, when I came back down, and I said to her that I went and talked, like I said, we had multiple conversations about this from when I originally brought in the application to when I came back in and asked her. I had no idea that Crestman still owned the land. How would I find that out if that wasn't from the city? And then secondly, how would I know that if it's gonna be dug up, that it's gonna be my responsibility if there's stuff back there, unless Teresa looked it up and told me there's nothing back there? Like, I don't have access to that stuff. So, those all came from the city, and I know you say you can't get it, but I don't tell anyone on my son's life that that conversation happened. I'm telling you unequivocally, it happened. I know she doesn't remember, but I'm telling you that there's no way I push a guy off an entire week to get it done when we're trying to get a fence in. If it didn't happen. I mean, and to think about the extent of the thing, like, I think the common sense factor here is about the amount of space that was in it. It started at the property bin and gradually went out. Instead of just going 3 feet back and straight across, it's at a diagonal because we wanted to limit the space as much as possible to avoid garage. And I didn't want to take up space that wasn't mine. And then on the other side.
But you did.
That's what I said, I came and asked for it though.
But it ain't yours.
But
You can't put something on somebody else's property.
But I assume that the city administrator or the people that owned it at the time of the Crestmans are the end all say all. This is our first house that we've ever built in our lives. Like, we haven't built these and flipped these. We bought a house when we moved here 5 years ago. We built a house. We put a fence there at the time too. I mean, we know, and I lined it up with my neighbor's shed. We weren't trying to do anything malicious, guys. I mean, and I understand the part about what he's talking about, how we have to figure out the actual sale, but the easy thing here is, all right, it's literally less than 200 square feet. He didn't do it intentionally. He's saying he had verbal authorization, and again, believe what you would like on that, but if it was missed by the city at the time too, and it came out after the fence was put up, 3 years later, it's brought up when something happened on the side of my house that never should have happened in the first place. I mean, like, think of all the combining factors here and the stuff that we've gone through as a homeowner. And we want to be in Hartford for years to come and build other houses. And I host a radio show where I tell people about how great Hartford is. The last few months, that's not been the conversation I'm having because I'm so frustrated, you know? And that doesn't have anything to do
Funny
with
you should bring that up because it was brought to my attention that you do talk about Hartford on your radio show.
all the time. My wife works at West Central and I preach about how
And it was
great it
brought
is.
to my attention that you don't speak highly of Hartford on your radio show.
Well, that is exactly false, man. You should actually read the website, ESPN991.com, where I wrote an article about the 5 best things about Hartford. I think you should actually check your facts on that again, Mark.
I got one thing to say, if you'll summarize this, I hope. We've got an agenda item, it's called offer to purchase city property. We just heard you verbalize that it's gonna cost you about $1,500 to move your fence. I feel like your offer is kind of a kick to us for $825.
That's what the value of the property is.
Well, what's your offer? It says offer at the top of this piece of paper.
$825.
That's just what I said.
That's the
Your
value.
offer is $825. I feel it's kind of a kick to us, it's kind of a low ball.
When the property's valued at 3.41 per square foot, if you take that math, it comes out to be less than 800.
But the opposite side of that coin is, it's gonna cost you $1,500. At least you could offer
I
us
think what Travis is trying to
$1,500.
say.
Travis, let me ask you this though. So I should be held hostage because of mess ups that weren't my fault?
What should we call it?
Mayor, let me suggest that we've devoted enough time to
I
this.
sympathize with you.
Hold on a minute.
No, I want to.
It's okay, you can finish. I'll listen to it.
I'm sorry, Mark. I think you've devoted enough time to this. The agenda item's been, an offer's been presented, and it's time to move on.
I agree.
Nope, we're moving on.
Do we have this executive session on that? Teresa? There's executive session on the
There's
agenda.
executive session on the agenda.
So if we move on, that means that there's no offer being made? Is that correct? Am I understanding this correctly? They were the offer to purchase city property.
If I heard Mr. Thurn correctly, this isn't even an offer.
The 825 is the offer.
I think that is his.
I think that is his offer.
Okay,
And we have an offer.
And I'm open to negotiate on it. I just want it to be done without moving the fence, guys. I'll negotiate on the price. I'm not trying to kick you guys on it. I actually thought I was giving more than what it was valued at. I mean, I really am not trying to make this a big deal at all, guys. I just want it to be done with and have our fence where it's at. And sorry to keep bothering this, but.
I think the point Travis was trying to make, that it's worth more than that because there's a fence on it.
Okay.
Can you guys explain that part, the finance part? I'm open to get, what were you saying?
I was just gonna say, Jeremy, before you even talk about money, you gotta decide if you wanna get rid of land, surplus it out. I mean, that's
It's
it,
gotta be
you guys
surplus.
decide first, if you wanna surplus this land off. So there's really no money value, he threw some money numbers out there where he thinks it's worth, you guys gotta decide if you wanna get rid of it. It should have been given to him by Crestman's, before they gave it to the city, or turned it over to the city. That's what should have happened.
That would have took care of the backside, not the side. Or
They
did
own
they
that
own,
too.
they own the side
They own
also?
that side.
They own all of it.
Okay.
So do we have a motion to entertain surplusing that land for a future council agenda item?
I make a motion to surplus that land for future agenda items
To consider.
To consider.
to consider.
And do we have a second?
I'm gonna second it for discussion.
Okay, we got a second for discussion. Okay, discussion.
So what are you after, Scott?
I'm after a resolve because, like I say, I think we're just really splitting hairs here. I understand everyone's point. I've heard everyone what they've said tonight, from that end of the room to that end of the room. And I think that we just need to make up our mind and move forward. And I think that Mr. Thurn's fair offer is fair. There it is.
Fair, but over $500, we have to let anyone bid.
Yep, that's
Okay.
surplus, yep,
So here's the deal. I know he wants that.
yeah.
I come in, I offer $10,000.
Mhm.
I got a piece of his backyard. What's it worth to him now?
Well, then he's out.
That's the risk I take, right?
It is.
Fair enough. And I would be willing to risk that. If somebody would pay $10,000 off the back of my lot, hey, more than welcome to, man. I feel you on that one.
Any more discussion?
Last point of discussion, it doesn't sway anybody in your favor if this doesn't go your way. And, oh, by the way, I own a radio show, or I have a radio show. You know, it's a threat.
What's a threat?
That if this doesn't go your way, you're gonna speak ill of Hartford on your radio.
There's nothing I'm gonna speak ill about Hartford. Like I said, my wife's a school psychologist, and I don't know what, let me speak.
Maybe I mistook that then.
No, let me speak. What I was telling him is that let me speak on this, because that stuff that he says is factual. And I would encourage Mark to read multiple articles I've written about Hartford, and listen to the radio show that actually says all kinds of great things. I do work with West Central, I do work with a lot of things out here. I promote the businesses, Pizza Ranch, Steakhouse, friends of ours, which ultimately get promoted on my show, sometimes for free because I like them so much. That is not true at all. And then secondly, no threat at all on that front. I'm not gonna go on there and bash you guys because you made a decision I didn't agree with. I will just do whatever I can to keep my fence there, man, but it won't hit that. I will say this though, when you're out in the community and you're telling everybody how awesome the place is that you live, like, we wanna build another lot down the street, and then you're dealing with this sort of thing with a fence of that amount of space, like, we plan on being here for a long time. My wife wants to work here probably for 20 to 30 years. I have no intention of leaving. This just leaves a sour taste in the homeowner's mouth because of something that we didn't know we needed to do another step of getting a contract. That's the only thing I'm saying. It is, radio show, the only reason I brought that up is I was telling you, I love living here and I tell people about it all the time. So I don't know what Mark was talking about.
All right, I think we had enough discussion of things that aren't pertaining to the surplus motion that's on the table. So, anything else pertaining to the motion?
Move called vote.
All right, we'll vote.
Read the motion, will you, Teresa?
Motion was made by Nelson, second by Jones, to consider surplusing the land with the fence on it, on a future agenda item. So we would then put it on the next agenda item to consider surplusing it.
We'll vote. No?
I got it.
No, move was call the vote.
It's regarding the vote, actually.
Okay.
Is if this vote fails, Larry, does that mean we can never consider an offer for that land again by him?
It means that you would, as part of the process, you're at some point in time, Mark, someone will have to make a motion to declare the property surplus. I think what this guy was trying to do is, well, okay, let's put it on the item, declare it surplus, and have the decision whether or not we're gonna do that at the next meeting.
Right. But if it fails, somebody could bring it back to an agenda item.
I think you could bring it back.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make
Yes,
sure.
yes.
We weren't just killing it forever.
Can you clarify that for me quickly? So,
So just, hang on. Did I answer your question, Mark?
yes,
All right, now, did you have a question?
sorry about that to interrupt. So
That's
can you
all right.
clarify that for me on what that means for me?
Would you like me to repeat what I just said to him?
Yeah, I would, please.
Okay. If someone wants to make the motion again to declare this surplus in the future and it did not pass now,
Okay.
could we do that? And the answer to that is yes. In general, in municipal law and legislative law, you can do anything you want that you have the votes to be able to do it with.
Would that have, could it be from me again?
Pardon?
Could I bring that up?
I think
Well,
what
you
he
have
wants
to, excuse me, Teresa, for to have anything on the agenda, the council has to approve it being placed on the agenda. The way it happens here in Hartford is that most items are placed on the agenda through the city administrator, which is Teresa.
Okay.
She's kind of the gatekeeper to items that need to get on, she'll see that they'll get on. I'll tell you that if they said today they didn't want to declare it surplus and you came back every week, said I want it on the agenda, probably in week 2 or 3, you're not gonna be getting it on the agenda and the commission's gonna tell you, we don't wanna talk about this for a while, okay?
I see that.
Okay?
I got you.
That help?
I appreciate it.
Okay.
Nelson.
Yes.
Horn.
No.
Keel. No. Brown.
No.
Jones.
Yes.
And Monahan. No. So that motion fails. Thank you, Jeff. This moves, what's your question?
What's the next move? What happens from here?
Next thing from here, if there is no other turn from here, and, say, you probably need to start talking to your contractor about the fence.
Can I ask you a question, Larry?
Don't talk.
Fair enough. That needs to be the next step then, from your guys' position. Okay.
Thank you. Next item up, deputy's report.
Okay, for the month of May, we had 202 calls for service. Of those calls for service, 26 of those were traffic offenses. Some of the things that happened, we had a couple bike thefts, a couple larcenies. Obviously, everybody's talking about the burglaries that occurred last Monday and Tuesday. We had, I believe it was, the total at the end was 9 car burglaries. In the interviews, we were able to basically catch and find out who did it. 5 juveniles and 1 adult were involved in the whole case together. One of the items was a stolen pistol that was recovered. They were kind of mixed and matched from Monday and Tuesday, but all parties were arrested or identified. And obviously I can't, because of the juveniles involved, I can't give any names. But just kind of give you the, some of the circumstances and some of the things that happened. This group of juveniles also did some vandalism. I think the charges, if I can recite all of them, anything from tobacco, curfew, vandalism, burglary of cars, burglary of the city property, the buildings, theft of the items, and one of the charges that is considered is the reckless burning, on top of theft of a firearm and possession of methamphetamine, where that ended up. So it all kind of stemmed from that case that happened. The calls started coming in at about 12:40 the evening of, well, the morning of the 30th. The officers responded to the open burn that turned into the burglary. Didn't find anybody at that time. The next call came in at 3 o'clock, somewhere around there. After 3:30, sometimes after that, maybe 4 o'clock. The next officer responded. He was able to catch 3 of the juveniles, and then we went and worked from there. I showed up like a rainbow after the storm at about 7 o'clock, trying to wrap things up. The officers, the deputies that did do the work did a great job. That was Deputies Roeder and Hartley. I believe Hartley was doing paperwork up until 11 o'clock the next morning, started his shift at 6 o'clock the night before. And reading his reports, he did a lot better than I think I could possibly do under those conditions, probably in general. But they did a really good job of wrapping things up, getting things progressed, and we were able to work through it. And like I said, I continued on with the investigation throughout the day. I was able to contact some of the other juveniles and wrap up more information. Again, this is just early in the process, so it'll be up to the juvenile courts. And for restitution, working with the other city employees, trying to get a value of the items that were stolen, damaged, and lit on fire. And that's pretty much where that case ended up. But like I said, we were able to contact everybody involved. There's nobody out there that was involved that's not being charged. That's not being dealt with. Start the summer off with a bang.
Yeah. Really pleased with that they were able to find all of them and have this kind of outcome, with having burglaries and having different things going on.
Right.
Sure feels a lot better for everybody here in town to know that.
We're a small town, but we need to step it up a little bit as far as locking our vehicles. There was the vehicle that was damaged to get into. There wasn't that was broken. Every vehicle that was broke into was unlocked. Now, the burglaries that happened at the park on city property, those were broken into. Those items were taken. And again, the bathrooms, I think we need to consider some of the things that Teresa and I talked about is maybe having an employee responsible for locking the bathrooms. That seems to be a hot spot for kids to hide when cars are coming, when we're responding. And also a place to light things on fire. I think that seems to be, I think initially there wasn't a charge of reckless burning. I think we've become a little desensitized to the fact that they've been burning paper towels in there for a couple of years now, and we could never catch them who was doing it. Had suspects, but we could never prove. We just keep replacing the paper towels. But if there's a way, Teresa talked about the pool employees when they lock up at 9 o'clock, if we could have somebody run around and lock up the bathrooms. That was just an idea that she came up with that we're tossing around. At least eliminate that. We did find out information why we can never find them in the park, knowing when they're called in, we get there right away and not being able to find them in flashlight. Sounds like they would climb on the picnic table and jump up in their rafters of the shelters and wait for the cars to pass and the lights to get done, and thinking that they ran away or ran someplace, and it turns out they were just up in the rafters. Well, they won't get away with that anymore. That's been put out to the night shift. If we know that somebody's been messing around in the park, we're going to have to get on there.
But doesn't that, the first thing I thought of when you said that was that I don't think the officers got out of the car.
They're looking for people running, they're looking for people standing there. They see the headlights before we're coming, we're hoping that some people are running, and we never even thought of, or check the bathrooms. We check the bathrooms, do that, but we never even thought of smarter than we are, I guess. It happens sometimes.
Expand that last Thursday, I was on my deck, and exactly like you called it. I was watching some, I'm gonna say 6 individuals in the park. It was shortly after 10 o'clock, and I was watching for obvious reasons. And they left, and my guy, wasn't 2 minutes later, 2 patrol cars came by, cased the joint, but they were gone. Deputy Alexander was one of them. I stopped and talked to him. I can't remember the other one, but they did an extremely thorough job, you know, on one side and the other. I watched the patrol cars, like I said, it was like they had a sixth sense, because I was watching them and Shazam, they were gone.
Yeah, they got their escape routes and then what was, you know, what's going on. And I think this is kind of a core group where now that we've handled this, hopefully this will deter for the rest of the summer. But, you know, going on as far as the community is concerned and some of the ordinances, I looked at our in the park after hours, you know, ordinance, the fine is $100. Seems excessive, and it's a deputy on patrol is gonna have a hard time writing that ticket. I think if it was a little bit more reasonable, the ticket gets written a little bit more. It's hard to write a 13, 14-year-old kid a $100 ticket for being in the park at 12 o'clock. A lot of times, you know, if they're not doing nothing or they're not vandalizing anything, you know, we send them home. Sometimes the fines can be so excessive, you're reluctant to, you know, assess the fines.
Can you elaborate on who had the meth and who had the gun? Was it the 18-year-old or was it the
Yes.
juvenile? It was the 18-year-old. That's a little unsettling too. But I guess that's better than the juvenile.
Yeah.
That's pretty bad when you set the bar that 18-year-old having a meth and a handgun instead of a 14-year-old.
Well, the circumstances of the case, they've all had it. So you're correct in your
That's how I look at
assumption. That's where it came from. Juveniles were doing the burglaries, gun ended up with the 18.
I know Teresa and I have talked about a couple times in the last week or so, but about next council meeting having an agenda item just for park discussion in general, just on what we can do to keep riffraff, things like this happening in the park, all of that. You know, we've had people from the public talk about that. They've had instances with kids in the park being rough, all of that. You talked about the skate park last time, so I don't want to get down it too far right now because I'm expecting here in June yet we're gonna go into a lot of detail on it.
Sell it for commercial. Throw it out there.
Other things.
Other than that, it's like I said, just normal stuff, traffic. We got warrants, you know, been serving some warrants in town, civil papers. A lot of traffic complaints. Railroad, every time I think apparently I'm not on there, someone's doing 50. But I haven't really had too many stops, maybe a couple stops on railroad is all. Stop signs, people have a tough time with stop signs in the United States. I don't think it's going to be hard. I think people get into a hurry, and I've made a couple of those stops. And, you know, I'm not much of a traffic guy or ticket writer, but I'm gonna give it a bit, and I've been giving warnings, but eventually we're gonna get to that point where, you know, like tell your friends, it's $120 every time you do it. And, you know, it goes to the old story of the cop that the guy one told him that slowing is the same as stopping. So the cop said the story, you know, if I start hitting you with a stick, do you want me to slow down or do you want me to stop? So that's my funny story tonight.
Tip your waitress.
The words of advice.
Any questions? What's been going on in the community? I think that was kind of the main thing that we were dealing with. And to be honest, I think the community probably knows more or just as much as I do about it. I think it's hit Facebook right away. People were coming up telling me what was going on. So
It's on the street. It's on the street, I think.
Yeah.
Even the identities out there.
And like I said, you know, unfortunately these things happen, but I think that, you know, the recoil from this happening is hopefully we have a quiet summer. Quieter summer. All right, deal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tyler.
Yep.
All right, time for city engineer report.
Okay. I assume you guys all have the report in front of you. First item is the wastewater treatment facility. We're still kind of in the preliminary phase of that project, looking at potential alignments and looking at the legal, land property that's down there, and starting to work on some form agreements that we can move forward with once we kind of have a pinpointed location.
Ross, last meeting I was able to attend, just kind of curious, mentioned having a chance to sit down with Mr. Anderson. Do you know, did that happen, Darren Anderson?
I believe it did.
Did it?
I believe it did.
Okay, I'll let you know. Okay, thank you, good. Okay.
Any other questions on the wastewater treatment facility? Okay, down to Vandermark Avenue sewer extension. The project is currently being advertised, scheduled for bid letting on June 8th, which is this Friday at 2 p.m. We have been getting a few questions from contractors, but it does appear that there's less plan holders on this project than we've had on the other couple of projects that have bid this year. And we are starting to hear that some of the contractors are getting full. One benefit we have with this project is, we have a pretty open schedule. It's a late deadline and shouldn't really take that long to complete the work. So we're hoping that there's a contractor out there that can fit it into their schedule sometime. But just wanted you guys to be aware that contractors are starting full.
Ross, I got a question on that bid then.
Yes.
Are the contractors supposed to provide you with the time that they think they'll finish it? Like, one guy says I'll have it done in 30 days, and one guy says I'll have it done in 120 days? Or is it just they have until such and such date to finish it? How should you?
They have until a certain date to finish it. It's not a set number of calendar days to complete the work. So,
You just work in a completion date, right?
correct. It's a completion date contract as opposed to a calendar day contract.
Is that, do you know offhand when that is, mid-September?
I think it's sometime in September. I don't know the date off the top of my head. But I think, we had only anticipated the sewer work to take, a month. And then, the rest of the work is some seeding and placing back the gravel. So if we bid now, the contractor could potentially start as early as, a couple of weeks from now up until, the deadline.
Thank you.
Move down to the Swenson Park Sports Complex grading phase 2. Bids were opened on May 11th. We reviewed the bids. We kind of discussed this briefly at the last meeting. And we have a recommendation to award the project to RMS Drainage. Their base bid was $509,783.11, and the alternate number 1 bid was $34,354.56. And I guess let you guys decide what you want to do with that.
Right. Discussed this at the last meeting. Most of us were here, some were not. Basically, whether or not to award the bid, and with that alternate, which was to move dirt dust to South Street, and get some of that in there just to help fill in what we need there. So,
Question I got on since the last meeting, with the base bid of 509,783, the dirt that would be moved under alternate one, if alternate one was not accepted, where's that dirt going?
It would be stockpiled on the city's property, to the north of the sports complex.
On 5 acres or whatever?
Yes, yes, that's where we have it designated in the plans. And we could also use some of that fill, potentially, around the ball fields to the west of that, where there could be a future building or something.
I'll make a motion to award the bid to RMS Drainage and Excavation for the base bid of 509,783.11.
Got a motion?
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second for the base bid without the alternate.
See, Jeremy?
Discussion.
I'm just curious, was the motion made just for the base because there's only an appetite to do the base and not the alternative? Or
Well, I'm
are
saying,
we looking at a second motion to adopt the alternative or alternate?
why move the dirt when we're not sure what we're gonna put on that site until we need to do it? I would imagine it would cost pretty close to $30,000 to $40,000 to move it down the road when we know what's going in there. So,
To move it down on South
yeah. And then if we decided about the 5 acres up there first, then we've got dirt there.
I'm not sure, I thought we figured that out when it was, I thought that was an incredibly reasonable price to move that dirt at the last meeting, was it 34,000 to move how many cubic yards of?
Yeah.
It seemed cheap to me.
There's actually, if we'd haul it down there, I believe there's still a pile that's gonna have to go up there, because it seems like there's an overrun, if I remember right.
That's correct. We're, even with, even if we completely fill the South Street, area, we're still gonna have additional dirt on site, on the sports complex site that, we will potentially use to fill in some of the low-lying areas if we do a parking lot in the future, put in a street that goes through the park.
Yeah, and I guess the way I see it is it's removing the dirt, picking it up, moving it once. It's only gonna cost us more to pick it up and move it twice if we decide to fill in South Street. So, if anybody, after this motion.
Right, so maybe I made it a little early. Jesse, what kind of, in the preliminary plans of if a daycare went in there, would that daycare in theory be slab on grade? Would we be digging dirt out that we just moved in there?
I don't know those answers for you yet. I mean, regardless of the factors, we need dirt, first thing need to be put in there, and regardless if it's slab or grade or anything more than that, you'll still have to dig dirt out, put in foundation or whatever it's called. So, I think the best move from the city standpoint to save money would be to do it now, that's lower than this. Talking to some construction parties in Sioux Falls, they estimated $40,000, just a very rough estimate to do the grading on there. So if you take the rough estimate versus this, I mean, it's about $5,000 less.
$40,000 to bring the dirt in and grade it, or?
That's the estimate that we were given, very rough. And that's the estimate that we worked with Stockwell a few months back.
Well, see, and I know we got a motion on the table, and this is kind of getting on the weeds, but therein lies another question, because 6 lots there, Teresa? 6? So the city currently has $60,000 tied up in those lots. We're looking at putting another $35,000, $40,000 in it, that's $100,000. And you're getting up on the high end of retail footage price, where you can just go buy land to build. So, I'm just saying that my biggest concern with that, and I don't want anybody to think I'm opposed to it, but my biggest concern with that is throwing good money after bad. So,
Yeah, we sometimes get tunnel vision.
the motion that's on the table right now, put a grading project up there. Any more other discussion on that? Alright, now we'll vote. Brennan?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Monahan?
Yeah.
Nelson?
Yeah.
Warren?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. And this would be your chance if anybody wants to entertain a motion for the alternate. Otherwise, we'll move on.
Make a motion to approve the alternate bid of $34,354.56 to haul excess dirt to the South Street lots. Does anything else need to be added to that? I mean, you said that possibly not all of it would.
I think the bid has all that, isn't it?
Okay, then I'll just keep it at that.
Alright, we got a motion for the alternate, do we have a second?
I'll second that for discussion.
Okay.
So it needs to be brought up on a floodplain anyway, correct? Is that true? Not necessarily?
There's nothing requiring us to, but if you want to develop it, if you want to develop it.
For any structure you place, then you've got to floodplain.
Yeah,
So
if
if anything's
anything
gonna
is
be
built
put in
there,
there,
it
it's
has
gonna
to
have to
be.
be brought up on a
Yeah,
good.
for anything.
Daycare, commercial, industrial, anything.
But just to play devil's advocate, we're talking tonight about buying a new payloader, and I believe we have 2 dump trucks. Do we not?
Yeah. It's a lot of dirt to haul.
I'm just throwing that out there, just food for thought.
That's a good
I mean, I
point.
know you guys are busy, Craig,
And we got some summer help.
you don't get summer help.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just throwing it out there, I mean, we can haul a lot of dirt, we can haul a lot of dirt for $35,000.
Just not next week.
Anybody remember when they did the fire station, how much dirt they had to take out of that place? Parking lot, building, how much dirt come out of there? When you do them kind of structures, you got a lot of dirt to remove.
I tried to put that out of my mind.
So, but that's why I'm saying, move it now, you don't know what kind of structure is going on there.
Had to bring it up to the fire department, didn't I, Terry?
Right, kind of, I'm good already, we're moving it for the second time.
Right. Yep.
And I'd rather spend, I would much rather spend $34,000 to move it if I knew somebody was going to build on it. Similar to giving the land away for the brewery. You know, like, we knew something was going there, it's a lot easier to justify the money.
Move the dirt in that's needed at that
Right.
point.
Because I'm pretty sure there's people a lot smarter than me that can tell us how much dirt's gonna need to be in there when a project is proposed.
So they tried to slide that a year and a half ago, when we turned down. If I recall.
Things happen.
You're right.
I made 4 bullet points that I thought kind of spin off what you're saying, Mark. Number one, I think we should kind of look at this, because I can remember when we were first talking about sports complex, flattening the thing was a hell of a lot cheaper than what it is right now, and we didn't do that. Long-term investment, I think that, residual wise, once we do get some layer, will it happen? We don't know, but I think it's not gonna happen unless we do get that filled in and out of the floodplain. If I understand correctly, the spare dirt would then be taken and put on the 5 acres and just sit there until it's as needed or needs to be moved someplace else, is that correct?
That's great.
So then we lost the 5 acres that we possibly sell there, as far as, that's the availability for the 5 acres that is available now. And also mobilization fees come into play, we got the gear there to do it. And I had one other note, but I can't read my writing, so I'll stop there.
I'd like to be in favor of the alternative bid one. I think that something will be placed there in the future. If it's not a daycare, it will be something else. If you do wait to do this in the future, it's gonna cost you more, just based on the natural cycle of development and inflation. And so, right now, this cost is fair. I mean, I wish I had a project to give you right now to approve for this, but We are working through that slowly to make sure it's done the right way first before jumping to any conclusions, before vetting the project. And from Scott's standpoint, I think it would be difficult to start thinking about ways to utilize the 5 acres better if there's a dirt pile sitting on it. But also make it a little more difficult to show to potential buyers the dirt pile on it. But it sounds like it might be anyways, and so I definitely advocate for that, a dirt pile on those 5 acres if possible.
More discussion? Hearing none? All right, we'll vote. Does anybody need to hear the motion again?
I'll hear it back.
Nelson made a motion, seconded by Jones, to award bid alternate number 1 to RMS Drainage and Excavation for $34,354.56 to haul the excess dirt from the sports complex to the South Street lots.
I have one question for Ross. Could it be put back in later as a change order?
Could be potentially, but we would
Or
have
would they be
to.
willing to
I
put
don't
it
think
back
so,
in?
it's an alternate,
I don't
can
think,
you?
I don't think you can if it's an alternate.
Because it's not part of the base bid, right?
Okay.
Think you can.
Yeah, I'm guessing they're gonna
Squawk at that.
dig it out, put it in a truck and haul it down here. They're either gonna haul it here or 5 acres.
It has to go on that 5 acres? That's just the way it's designed currently.
That's correct. I mean, we propose putting that dirt pile there just to get it kind of out of the way. There's potential to put it somewhere else, but
I mean, because all the plans that we have don't show anything on the 17 or the 20 acres, you know, to the north of the field, you know what I'm saying? The whole section right here.
you're talking kind of the
Just
proposed lot to the north.
Yeah, so basically just the track between the 5 acres and where the soccer fields and the parking are all platted, are shown on this map. You know, there's a sizable area that hold this dirt as well, so I don't know if we need to.
But isn't our intent to get that to grade though? That's partially why we're doing it, don't we?
But why would we, I don't understand why we stuff it on 5 acres that are already ready for sale.
That's my second question. Is that 5 acres ready for development? Like, is that gonna need anything?
So it's created all the same, like, we got an indentation, it's about 6 foot more than the rest of the property, it's about 8.5. In the southeast corner of that piece of property. If anybody's gonna build it, it's gotta be filled.
We had talked,
The base is the 5 acres, correct? I mean, can we move the 5 where we want the dirt down?
Yeah, with the base bid, I mean, we proposed it in that location, putting that dirt pile there. But, you know, we could theoretically move that around.
I mean, there's a better spot.
Right, what it does though, then all of a sudden your 20 acres or 18 or whatever it ended up being on that industrial piece is not graded at that point, you know, because you got a pile of dirt on it. So it's either put it here or put it there.
And we're still gonna end up with piling dirt up there, right?
Correct.
A little bit of
So if it's a big pile or a small pile, then it doesn't matter.
Right, because if we look really
If we sell it, we gotta
haul
get
it
it all
down here,
out.
then we can haul it back up there.
Right.
I was want to talk to Mitch about putting that alternate in there to bring that dirt down there, just because it makes those lots available. And then we get rid of some of the dirt that's up there, some piles smaller up there. Eventually that dirt up there,
Okay, so, I'm sorry, go ahead.
so, you know, like I said, when we, me and Mitch were talking about the plans, I said, well, let's look at putting an alternate in there to get the dirt moved from there
Yeah.
to there.
Right.
So that's why that got brought into there under your approval,
Yep.
but
So the question, I guess, I'm not fully informed, is the 5 acres needs dirt or not?
yes, it needs dirt, it needs to be graded. We talked about it, and it was not put into the bid.
Shame on us. We could have killed 2 birds with 1 stone here.
Oh, I talked to Mitch about it and asked, does it seem feasible? Is there much grading that needs to be done there? And he didn't think.
It's not as,
He said,
Because not knowing what's gonna go on in there, how do you
Same
grade
thing,
it?
whatever they dig
Yes.
out can fill in, right?
Right, exactly. Unless you know what's gonna go in there, how they're gonna utilize it, you don't know where the dirt needs to go. So I did talk with Mitch about that.
and some of this dirt's gonna go down for the future building down there, the sports complex. But they can't haul it there now because it's too wet in there, and the equipment they'll be using, they'll never get in and out of it. There's just not enough room to turn. So that's why we had to find another spot to put, you know, I mean, and there ain't that much that's gonna go down when they build it.
They see, well, the first thing they do when they start building a building, unless it's slab on grade, is to dig a footing. Then what's the next thing? They haul it. They legal for backfill, then they haul it off the property.
Parking lots.
One of the tidbits before we call this vote, not that it matters because we spent enough of Teresa's money already anyway, but it was budgeted for 570,000, came in at 509. You subtract, that leaves 60,000 from that proposed budget, subtract 54. Bottom line is that if we do approve this alternate bid for hauling this dirt, it still is $25,863 below the estimated engineering budget.
Just so I'm clear, we still have dirt at the sports complex that would need to be hauled off if somebody came in and wanted to develop it.
That's my
Yes.
understanding with this.
And we do have 2 dump trucks. And an old John Deere payloader. So far, it would take less time to move dirt than it would to move more. Theoretically.
It's all theoretical at this point, what that number is.
All right, ready to vote?
Not really.
That all nice thing.
Yeah.
All right, we can go first off. On the alternate.
I'm gonna go no.
Yes.
Yeah.
Keel.
No.
Horn.
Yeah.
Nelson.
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, we got more things on the report. We got geotech agreements, all that good stuff. What do you got?
All right, next up is Mickelson Road. I'll just give you a brief recap of kind of what's been going on out there. Since the last council meeting, Sukup Construction has done the majority of the grading work between Patrick Avenue down to pretty much where the future road will turn off. They've excavated out the material kind of that first stretch and brought it down into the low line area on the curve. Siteworks is the utility contractor on the job. They came in last week and started with some of the water main installation, a few hydrant stubs between Patrick and Shamrock, and they also did a sewer extension on Cloverleaf. They also rerouted the wastewater treatment facility's discharge line, the 15-inch sewer line, kind of in the 464th Avenue and Nicholson intersection. And then just this week so far, they started doing the sanitary sewer installation down kind of in the bottom end, and are working on bringing that sewer up into kind of the existing Nicholson roadway. And Sukup is now preparing a subgrade on the first, call it 1,600 feet of roadway. They're gonna try and compact that and get it ready for gravel base course to be installed in a few weeks. And Mid-American, their contractor, is also on site doing a gas extension on the south side of Nicholson between Patrick and 464th Avenue, and they're gonna stub across into all the streets going into the kind of Kelly Point area. So that's kind of a quick recap. If anybody has any questions about that, I can answer them now.
Ross, I know we got a lot of equipment that they've been moving in and out, but I wonder on Patrick if there'd be a way that we could keep them from, man, there's a lot of vehicles parking on the street down, not that I mind, but pulling in and out of my driveway gets a little dicey on occasion.
Yeah.
I'm sure not just for me, other people.
Yes. We kind of talked about that.
That sounds like a personal problem. Yeah, it is.
Want the street,
Jeez, I want the street and then I'm complaining. Okay, never mind.
again, you should call your city council.
Yeah, I should call my city council. I should call my Ward 3 guy.
Yeah, there you go. Well, since you brought that up, we actually did discuss that a little bit today. We had a meeting on site, and we talked about keeping kind of those travel lanes open all the way down to Patrick, because there's a center turn lane and then 2 drive lanes. I'd like to keep those open, and I also talked to them about cleaning that area up. There's a lot of gravel that's tracked onto Nicholson, and also with that, closing those barricades tighter at the end of the day, just to make sure nobody thinks they can drive down, because they've had them kind of open because that's their only way in and out with trucks right now.
And we say no trucks going down Patrick, but I can tell you there's no way for those guys to get turned around, so they've all been wheeling down after they unload their equipment.
Yeah, we've had some complaints on that.
I mean, but those big long trucks, there's no way for them guys to go. I mean, their only way out of the area is to go down Patrick and come around.
Have you seen a lot go all the way down?
Oh,
there?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Because I've been talking to them almost on a daily basis about making sure there's no truck traffic down those streets. And there shouldn't be, there's no need for that. They might have to pull into Patrick to get turned around, but we don't want trucks on those.
Oh, they're doing it. In fact, I have a picture on my phone, somebody sent me one. So, I mean, I know it's part of the deal. And they broke something, they have their trucks there working on something tonight, they must have broke some piece of equipment pretty good this afternoon, yeah.
If there's no more questions about the actual construction, the first action item I have is a proposal from Geotech Engineering and Testing Services to perform all the compaction testing and the fresh concrete testing, the concrete cylinders for crushing to make sure we're having the right strength, and the asphalt testing.
I looked at that Geotech offer,
Yes.
and what exactly in this project is gonna be concrete? That's what threw me off, because there's a bid for asphalt and there's a bid for concrete.
So the concrete testing is for the curb and gutter, the fillets, and the sidewalk.
Did they actually bore those and test them?
No, they'll do slump tests,
No,
probably.
they'll come out when they're pouring the curb and gutter, and we'll take fresh concretes to measure the slump, the temperature, the percent air content, as well as maybe a couple other tests. And then they'll take cylinders that they'll let set up and then crush back at their testing facility to make sure.
So they'll actually form the cylinder and then test it?
Correct.
Okay. That's what threw me off. I didn't think it was gonna be, well, I figured it had to be one or the other.
Yeah.
They're doing, yeah, that's what threw me off, so that makes sense.
Is there a reason this isn't in the original, in the bid package, or?
We typically don't have the contractor arrange
it's-
the testing. We
okay.
like to have that between the city.
Separate, okay,
Yeah.
I get it, okay. That makes sense.
Well, I don't think you need to do it either. You don't have to test it if you don't want to, do you? I mean, it's advised, but
You can go out there and test if you want.
The city requires,
you don't think there were streets built in this town that didn't get tested?
Oh, gosh.
I'll bet you live on one that didn't get tested. What do you want to bet, Travis? Look how well that's holding up.
There's some test holes up there.
Really?
I make a motion to approve the proposal from Geotech Engineering and Testing Services for materials testing on Nicholson Road for the amount of $14,543.
Second.
Okay, motion second, discussion.
Is that not to exceed or in that?
That's a-
Not to exceed.
It should be a not to exceed.
Not to exceed.
Because the testing may not be that much. It's gonna go by the test.
I need to rephrase my
I
not to
rephrased it to
exceed
not to exceed.
$14,543.
Still second?
Still second.
All right, no discussion? Vote, Monahan?
Yeah.
Jones?
Yes.
Brennan?
Yep.
Keel?
Yes.
Warren?
Yep.
And Nelson?
Yes.
All right, going to Sioux Cup piece.
Yep, the next item is the first pay request for the Nicholson Road project. Pay application is in the amount of $129, or $129,661.73. It includes a portion of the mobilization, traffic control, some of the erosion control items, clearing, grading, and I think that is about it.
I'll make the motion to approve the first pay request for $129,661.73.
Second.
Discussion? None? Nelson?
Yes.
Warren?
Yep.
Keel?
Yes.
Brennan?
Yep.
Jones?
Yes.
And Monahan?
Yeah.
Anything else?
So the next item on the engineer's report is the Mike Franklin Trail. Sukup is the contractor on that project as well, and I've been talking with them about getting going. Their project manager for that project is out of town this week, but last we spoke, he was planning on getting in there basically any time to finish out the punch list work.
What, on a scale of 1 to 10, what are the odds that this isn't going to show up on the report next meeting?
I would like to tell you that it'll be done, but I can't tell you for sure, I guess. I'll push Sukup to get out there.
How much time do they have to complete? I mean, what point are they in violation of the contract?
I don't have the timeline for you, I guess. I don't have that contract right in front of me or anything, so.
Have they been paid completely?
We always hold back a contingency until
Okay,
the
so
punch
there is
list
something
items.
being held back.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Remind him of that. There we go.
Yeah, it'd be nice to get, Travis is right, we need to get that cleared off this report.
My mowing crew from the school, high school driveway all the way south had a weed eat today because we can't get into the mower. The water is still running from the school or driveway south. So
It's in tough shape.
getting the
Yep.
south end is.
Maybe we should hold on to that check we're sending them. Same, bet they get their attention. I bet it'd get done.
You know,
That water comes from the drain tile that's around the north
So
side
my
of that
concern
high
is-
school area. The drain tile that wraps it around that building, that ties into that storm sewer that comes on the east side of the high school, and runs into that road ditch. And that drain tile is still taking care of water, surface water, drain water.
plug it up.
Flood the school out, that's what the reason is put in it, they didn't flood the school.
They're not in class right now.
How much runoff are we getting with this irrigation going?
What's that?
The irrigation that the school put in on that soccer field, how much is that affected?
I don't know yet, they just started
This morning, was it the first guys that's run?
Yeah, they just started it, they did it grass last week. This drain tile wraps around the north end of the middle school building. When they built that building, they had water that come across the floor, and they said, put a drain towel over it, it goes out to the southeast into that road ditch, and that drain towel is draining water.
Alright, well, if we're wrapped up, you got anything else on there?
I was just gonna run through some of the force account stuff we've been working on. We've had a plan review for Knapp's Landing addition. There was a reimbursement request for the South Main addition that we helped out with. Crestwood addition, erosion control. We did some inspections at Kelly Point for those 2 cul-de-sacs. Sports complex, fencing research, city map handouts, brewery plan review, and the housing property coordination, which is up kind of by the Knapp's Landing Division. And I guess if you have any specific questions on any of those items, I can answer.
City map handout, so I want to add questions on.
So they redid our maps. We don't have a map we can hand out to the, let's say what the streets are, whereas to the people, not an updated one anyway. So Dan Reiner in their office has been working on getting that to us, and he actually sent me a sample one this week, and he missed a couple streets, so I sent that back to him, but that should be done
Citywide
shortly.
garage sales this weekend.
Huh?
Citywide garage sales this weekend?
Yep.
Yeah, see, it would be nice to have it, yeah, would have been nice to have it.
Tell you what.
You going
City map, citywide garage sales.
Alright, any questions for us? Anything else on force account? Good. Thanks, guys. Alright, great.
All right, I'm just gonna hit on something, anything that's changed here. Base mag water, kind of tentatively looking at Tuesday or Wednesday of next week to get that applied. Equipment wise, the gator is back together and ready to go. Emerald dashboard, like, so we'll be talking about that on a later date, something that we definitely gotta keep on top of. Traffic counts have been turned over to, HR Green for the I-90 interchange. Jesse helped me get that started, sent that off for me today, because he's more of a computer person. And, mosquitoes, we have been out spraying, getting them, we got the pucks out for Laura's side, so that's all been put out. Water main, the water main at the sports complex is done. And then, sewer, I know Arden had mentioned about the odor up there.
Yeah.
I went up there today and looked at it up in the lagoons. There's a little bit of odor up there, but not bad. But then, about 2 weeks ago, when we had that one storm come through, it actually took out some fuses out of our blowers. So
Okay.
when Jess was up there on Monday, the blowers are off, so it might have been enough there to do it. So we'll keep an eye on it, if not, we'll have to get some, bugs and put back in there.
Well, we've had south wind every day, that's.
Yeah,
hasn't-
I was, like I said, I drove up there today and it wasn't too bad
Okay.
at all, so.
Yeah.
But I'll keep an eye on that. Parks, we've already talked about the vandalism up there. Basically, gonna just get in the parks, just next week, we'll be hitting them pretty hard, getting everything finalized, ready to go for Jamboree Days. Playground equipment, I'm not really sure where we're at with that. I think we've got, I have never been contacted them, so.
So I got an email, we sent in our bid to Jeff Zacharias, got an email from him Monday saying that we won the bid, 6,600. And so I told him, great, he says I'll get a hold of Craig and coordinate, when it needs to be out of there, and obviously, yeah.
So that's kind of where we're at right now.
So it'd be now just coordinating with Jeff to see when we need to get that out of there, when we can take that out of there, because he's gonna help us get the poles out and stuff and down, so.
And your plan for that, Craig, was to freshen it up,
Yeah.
put it in the shop for the summer?
Yeah, we'll get it put in the shop there and store it away and start getting it cleaned up and ready to go, so.
Okay.
Sports complex, water service out there, we've been out there, we finally got a few days of work out there. The lines are all in except for, we've got about 20 feet where the meter pit's gonna go. We've got that sitting out there, so tomorrow morning, we're gonna get that set, and we'll have, hopefully filling the water lines out there tomorrow, and then flush them, and then we will chlorinate them, on Friday and flush that out on Monday, and then take a couple samples, make sure everything passes, so we should be up and rolling on that.
Say, Craig, those are regular hydrant, regular garden hose, they're
Yeah.
not big or?
There is 2 bigger ones out there for like a 2.5 inch fire hose,
Okay,
and then there's 5 smaller ones out there.
where are the 2 big ones, by the fields, the Waterloo field?
Yeah, kind of, the one for the soccer fields, we just kind of put it out there because it's gonna change somewhere, but we can always dig it up and move it.
Okay,
But that's kind of right around, as you pull in, you go to the left towards soccer fields.
yeah,
It's right on that grassy area going off to the east there as you kind of go around the curve.
okay,
And then there is a small hydrant there to fill like a water jug or
Yeah.
something like that. And then the other bigger hydrant is just past the building out there between fields.
okay.
And then we put 4 yard hydrants, farm hydrants by each one of the dugouts by the gates there, so
Okay.
ball players.
They were discussing that the other night, getting hoses and stuff, and they were under the impression that they were all just small, but there is 2 big.
There is that 2.5.
Do they know that?
I think Matt knows about it, but I don't know if he probably
Well,
forgot.
He didn't say anything.
Yeah,
that
because
night.
when I first talked to him about it was when we first started putting this
Okay.
project even together.
Okay.
So he probably isn't aware of it. I mean, I talked to Matt actually last night.
Yeah.
I told him where we're at with it, so.
Okay, okay,
And he had mentioned that you guys were, they were getting
Yeah.
garden hoses and stuff like that, so.
all right.
Electrical, where we're at with that, we did get the pad for the 3-phase transformers poured. Sioux Valley is actually thinking they're gonna be out there tomorrow to get their stuff done. And then kind of working with an electrician.
Full disclosure, we're gonna donate our labor and
Yeah.
materials are being provided by the
Yeah.
city.
Yep, Travis is gonna donate the labor out there, and then sounds like he's working on maybe possibly getting some panels and stuff like that donated out there. And then what he doesn't get, he'll give me a list and we'll purchase it and have him install it, so. That's worth a sign on the fence, I think
If they bring us a proposal, we can move forward with that.
There you go. So that's where, moving ahead pretty good out there, should be in good shape. Finally, I told Matt and those guys, I said, we'll have water, electricity, the way things are going right now, that shouldn't be a problem. I said, you're not gonna have grass, because it just, not enough time, so. But it isn't tore up too bad, so it's just gonna be stripped down the center, so. Otherwise, ball field just kinda getting them ready for ball season, so. That's all I got in the report.
Did you mag water right after our meeting?
We did do some, but we just spotted, we did a little bit down Railroad by Valve, I believe it is, and then down past the bus barn. And then we did a little bit up in your area, and then, what else? Oh, a little bit down with the elevator down here. We didn't do anything like by our shop or anything like that.
You could reach out to me next time before that happens, we'll put a little blast on Facebook for the neighborhood, so that maybe they'll just avoid it, instead of tracking it all the way down Park E,
Okay.
in my driveway, in my house.
The traffic actually does a really good job for us backing.
Oh, I know. It's good.
But yeah, it does track, and you know, it'll eventually, a few rains, it'll just pay off there, but like I said, we are tentatively looking at Tuesday or Wednesday, but I'll get a hold of you and let you know what day to do it, so we're staying away from the garage sale day.
It's a good idea.
We got 2 last year.
Is it possible, did you lay extra gravel on Railroad?
We did put some gravel down, we're actually gotta go get that in shape and get the rocks out of it,
Okay.
it was terrible gravel. so.
And I agree, and so does the landowner next to it, and that gravel did not get mag water
No,
on top?
I did not, so.
That's fine, okay,
So,
but it will, between now and the tractor pull?
Next week I'm hoping,
Okay.
Tuesday or Wednesday, so.
Thanks.
That's what I've got to schedule for, so.
Thank you.
I'll contact you tomorrow, so. Anything else? Next thing on my stuff is the payload quotes, bids. What I did is I contacted Caterpillar, Case, and John Deere. I sent an email out to all 3 of them, salesmen, specifically just saying, this is what we want to have. Pretty basic, nothing elaborate with it. Type of tires we wanted, stuff like that, this size unit. Sent it out, and I told them to give me your best bid you have out there, whether it's a South Dakota bid, Minnesota bid, or a the NJPA. So they all sent me back their best one. I told them I wanted a breakdown of the individual, what was extra, you know, in it, or what's in the base, that stuff, so we kinda got an idea of that, and then if there's any options and the price on that. And I think the prices are in that other paper, aren't they, on those, all of them, or? I can't remember, for the breakdowns.
Right, they're
Okay.
in the packet, yep,
Okay.
yeah.
So we sent that out, and that's the numbers you got before you. Get mine out so we see what I'm looking at. So, Butler came in at 179.55.50, with a 400 guaranteed buyback. Case was 149.138. That's off the Minnesota bid. The other one was off the NJPA. And then they did a guaranteed buyback of 44.720. And then John Deere's 158.775 with a guaranteed buyback of 42.500. So that's the numbers there. I also put out from you, I basically left the Caterpillar on there because that's 18,000 over our budget. So I gave you some other information I just handed out tonight, which I'm just got myself to get out there. Basically, kind of showing what the equipment depreciates, kind of on like a rough idea. So on the other two, you, like on the equipment watch one, like I said, they print the goofy for you guys. So like on a 2013 model, both the 621 and the 544, the fair market value, you can see there's a difference of about 11,000. So that's kind of like, there's usually like, I looked on some eBay stuff and different things on Trader and that stuff today, just get some numbers. But I typically seen John Deere value was about anywhere from 12 to 20 higher on that year, in that model. It's hard to see what the base price was when they first bought it versus, you know, the other numbers. Going off of, you know, like what the city pays for all this stuff is a lot different numbers from what these other ones are.
I have a question for you, Larry.
Yes.
What kind of legal obligation are we under to take the lowest bid presented?
You're supposed to take the lowest responsible bidder.
With this type of bidding, you don't have to, so that's completely up to you guys, because this is off that NJPA in Minnesota, which we can buy off of any bid from the state of Minnesota.
Okay, then when you buy off anybody else's bid, yeah, you're supposed to be able to do that if they're a governmental entity, and if they've complied with what happens in the state of South Dakota. So if the city of Watertown has bid out a tractor, and we know that they've done publication and bidding and stuff, or the state of South Dakota's done it, you go ahead and bid off there, but the statute says any other governmental entity, and so the tractor salesman has said, well, that means any other governmental entity. They always ask the lawyers to sign off on the deal, and well, for me to sign off on it, you have to prove to me, state of Minnesota, that you've done the same publication requirements that has occurred in the state of South Dakota. So if you're asking me, are you signing off on the Minnesota bid, I'm gonna tell you, I haven't seen the Minnesota bid, I'm not signing off on it.
So I guess a better question would be, so the Caterpillar came off a bid,
Yep.
the John Deere came off a bid, and the Case came off a bid, and just for the sake of argument, we'll assume that they're all good bids.
Right.
We don't have to shop bids, we can just buy off bid.
Off bid, yeah, I thought you were saying as if.
No, I was asking if we have to compare bids and then pick the lowest of the bids, or if we can actually shop off something that's already been bid.
If you had you did some bid specifications, and you came back with 3 separate bids, exact same thing, all South Dakota boys by way of example, and the guy in Hartford was $10,000 more, and he said, geez, we'd like to help him. I'm gonna tell you that you can't do that because he's not the lowest responsible bidder. Craig is saying, and I agree with him as it relates to bids in this area and with you, that if you like what you're seeing for a price, you can buy off that item that's been bid by somebody else.
Okay.
Agreed?
What year's the current one, Craig?
2004.
2000?
Yeah, and we paid around 90, I want to say like 96, 97 for it.
Did we buy that new?
Yeah, we did.
Well, I'll just say my piece, and I've thought about this far more than I care to admit. So right from the get-go, between the case and the John Deere, it seemed like a substantial amount of money. But the more I thought about it, and I'll, just for the record, I think it's safe to say that Craig wants John Deere. And I reached out to Neil just to see what Neil's opinion was. And Neil also likes the John Deere. So, as a steward of the taxpayer dollar, I keep coming back to the money. And the resale, I think you can make the case on the resale. It's hard to compare apples to oranges, but I mean, we're looking at a 2004 year, and it's bringing 42 to 44,000 on trade-in, which, you know, seems like fair to me. But then so we've had that payloader for 14 years. And over the course of those 14 years, when you divide that by the difference and the months, 14 years ago, if that was the price difference between a John Deere and a case, it was $70 a month to have a John Deere. And in my world of trucking, if my employer could put me in a piece of equipment for $70 a month that I wanted versus a piece of equipment that wasn't my first choice, that when I break it down to $70 a month to put our employees in a piece of equipment that they want, it doesn't seem like as big a number. Because another thing I know in my line of work is if you put an operator in a piece of equipment that they want to be in, they tend to take care of it better than if they're in a piece of equipment that they don't want to be. And that's just human nature. Because if you want to see a piece of equipment get abused, you put a truck driver in a truck he doesn't want to be in. And it will get it. And I'm not saying Craig or any of the guys down there would do that, but in my line of work, you put a driver in a piece of equipment he doesn't want to be in, and he will beat it to death.
I think that's a good way to look at it. I do think though, with this piece of equipment, it's not, you're in the truck, it's what you use, it's your main tool, it's what you use all day, every day. And, this is one of our tools. They're not all day, every day, it's not something somebody's spending 30 hours a weekend or 20 hours a weekend.
Agreed.
We use it a lot, but the same person's not in there all day long, every day.
Do you think I'm wrong, Terry?
No, when you talk about 20, there's been a lot, that machine in the last 5 years that I've been here, that thing gets run daily. I mean, it's a lot more than it was 10 years ago. And snow removal, day-to-day operations, that thing is getting used more and more and more. And we're getting more streets. We're gonna have 5 more cul-de-sacs. Yeah.
So in the winter time, it's used all the time.
And summertime. So it's getting used more and more in the last 5 years.
And, I mean, I don't want anybody to take that the wrong way.
Yep.
I mean, a brand new case, I'm sure, is a nice piece of equipment, just like a brand new Cat and a brand new John Deere. I'm sure it's a nice piece of equipment, you get in it, it smells good, it's shiny, you know, I'm sure it's all that. I mean, getting in a new Ford is better than getting in a new Chevy, but you're still getting in a new vehicle. You know what I mean? You're getting in a new vehicle. It smells new, it runs new.
It's gonna be worth less when you go to trade it in.
Well, you know what I'm saying, I mean, a new piece of equipment's better than an old piece of equipment, but in my mind, is it worth $70 a month to put employees, regardless of the time they spend it, I guess, in a piece of equipment that they both recommend?
Okay, now I gotta ask why.
Familiar with the John Deere, we've, haven't had very few issues with our past one. When we didn't demo them all this time, when we demoed them last time, the John Deere was just more cab friendly, more, it didn't seem so tippy. So I guess we kind of, back then, we just kind of liked the John Deere better. Neil and Jesse did go over and drive the case, and they just, Neil thought it just seemed like it didn't have quite the power like the John Deere had. I didn't demo them this time, I let those guys go out and look at it. I didn't go look at the John Deere that Crooks has got, to see what it's set up like.
What I don't see in here, what's the cat worth after 14 years?
I didn't put that one even in there because of the 179, we can't buy it unless we, because of budget, I mean, we could have, I didn't put it, have it in there.
But with trade-in, it's within our budget.
We cannot do a trade-in, that's why we have to do guaranteed buyback, because we cannot,
Guaranteed buyback, right?
we cannot do the trade-in on it.
Comment, there's a difference between trade and guaranteed buyback. What you're asking for is not guaranteed buyback, you're asking for a
Well,
guaranteed trade.
oops, you gotta stand up there so I can hear you.
And
And introduce yourself.
Austin Morgan with Butler Machinery. Craig keeps bringing up guaranteed buyback, what he's referring to is guaranteed trade number. Guaranteed buyback is down the road when you guys go get rid of the machine 2 years, 3 years, 4 years later.
And go cat to cat. No, not even that.
You don't have to buy, if you go guaranteed buyback, you do not have to buy the same machine.
Okay.
So, what he's saying is that the bid that is awarded out there, whether it be Minnesota State bid, NJPA, it's not awarded with the trade, so the trade cannot be attached to the bid. So you gotta have a separate trade. That answer the question? So the guaranteed buyback would be as if we wanted to just ultimately have you guys buy it back after X amount of time. So we would offer you a dollar amount, say, on this machine, you have a 5-year, $4,000 warranty. We could offer you a buyback to, from the day of delivery, 5 years, $4,000, you buy it back for $7. So you know if you pay $180 for the machine today, and we give you a buyback at $120, your net cost is $60,000 for 5 years. We take the risk on the market. But that number wasn't in the guaranteed buyback wasn't in the bid. We didn't ask for that.
So the letter that we got is basically from all, is what they would guarantee they would purchase our used loader for.
Guaranteed trade-in. Guaranteed trade-in. And I guess I have the same question on why, if you just threw the cat out right away, what if our trade, our trade values are $18,000 higher, that puts us right in line with the other guys. So, I guess that's the question. That is a good question. And you demoed the machines last time, it was 14 years ago?
Yep.
I guess there's quite a bit's changed, 14 years, so. Do a demo, we'll offer a guaranteed buyback. You guys know what your cost is other than fuel, operator, maintenance.
Make a motion to table this till next meeting.
Second.
Motion second.
We can't discuss it.
Discuss.
Okay.
Monahan?
Oh, wait a minute.
Got a motion.
Oh, yeah, we can't discuss our table, can we? Man, I wanted to make a comment.
So that.
We'll make the math work. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Keel? Ford? Yeah. And Nelson?
Yes.
Between now and the next meeting, can we get a guaranteed buyback price and a guaranteed trade-in price from Butler Cat? Or not?
And is RDO and Titan, do you do that same deal?
I'm Wade with Titan Machinery. Titan Machinery is a publicly traded company. I'm on the tax end of it. A guaranteed buyback is virtually impossible for us.
Okay.
Our solution to that would be a lease for you guys.
Okay.
Where it would be a balloon lease where we would back the balloon, I guess I would say. So essentially it's the same thing. There will be a little bit of interest tacked on there, but if there's a big enough price tag between them, we can offset that cost. So we do have a solution for it. It's not technically a guaranteed buyback. One thing I would push in there, I don't know how much spec or bid information you got in your packets. One thing that we do offer free of charge for you on any of our heavy equipment is a 3-year, 3,000-hour planned maintenance program. So all scheduled maintenance in that time frame or hour limit is paid for by case. Parts, labor, this close to us into Sioux Falls will take care of the travel as well too. So that's another Austin brought up cost fixing. That's something that we can assist in there too.
Say it was 3 years, 3,000 hours?
3 years, 3,000 hours.
All scheduled maintenance?
All scheduled maintenance. So you deliver the machine for scheduled maintenance at 100 hours, we come out, we take care of it, we never see it. Repetitive after that, every 500 hours.
We keep talking about this for another 6 months, we're gonna have like a $20,000 payload.
They're gonna be paying us to take one.
Hey, right? Yeah. Thank you.
I think that's what that's what we're angling for, they're gonna be paying us.
What's that? I do not, I apologize. Jake, the salesman that handles out here, wound up having an emergency come, couldn't be here, so I come from Chamberlain. So.
He works for State Farm on the side, Jake from State Farm?
Yeah, pretty much, he had a night plan.
Your last name?
My last name is Planting, like planting a seed.
Do we have anybody here from John Deere?
No, when he asked about showing up, I told him I just assumed it didn't have any salesmen here. 6 years ago, I tried to buy a backhoe, they got into arguments, and that was when we were told that we weren't buying one this year. So.
All right, I'm glad they listened to you.
Anything else on that, otherwise we're gonna move?
On that note, are you gentlemen gonna be here for next week?
Jake will be back.
Might want to tell John Deere guys show up. Just,
I live in town, so I'll be here.
you better invite the John Deere.
We'll try to expedite it.
Move you up toward the top.
Nothing like 6 people trying to buy a payloader.
Yeah.
I like the yellow one.
All right, finance officer.
I'm sorry, I know, kind of, just quick question, I missed the last meeting, speed bump on Kelly.
I did try to get it drilled back a little bit. We will be getting up in there after, probably a week or 2 after Jamboree days. We'll be getting up past.
Just so I have some kind of feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, they went up and tried to scrape it out of there a little bit, Terry did that one day, so I should have got knocked out a little bit.
Good enough for me, thank you.
Everyone, just take it out.
Say, Scott, just so you know, I'd already asked Craig about that.
You did?
I'm taking care of work for you in case, you've been gone.
No, I'm just saying you're probably here for our protection.
All right, let's go finance officer.
All right, sorry.
Okay. Just quickly, month end, I'm working on those month end reports for the finance officer. There's a list of the revenues we got in during May. Gave you, show you where we are at our cash balances and what the revenues and expenses have been for the month of April and then year to date. Park Rec program started this week, so this is the first week of it, goes through June. Swimming pool is opened on the 22nd. It has been busy with the hot weather. They've had a lot of kids down there, so it's doing well. Swimming lessons, MB, which is the old YMCA, is offering swimming lessons again. They bring in the people to do the swimming lessons. They take all the money or whatnot, they just use our pool facility. There is a session in June and a session in July, just like we have previous years. Also in your packet, some information about the 2018 elected officials workshop that the municipal league puts on. I don't need to know right now, but please look that over and let me know if you would like to attend it. We do need to register in a couple of weeks, so. And Last week, we had our auditors in for 2 days, a group of 5 here for 2 days, and so they're very busy, but they're done. They basically did their field work in here. They will take that information back to their office, do the follow-up work and the reports. We'll probably get our audit in, I don't know, a month and a half, you know, by the time they get it absolutely completed, and we'll get a copy of that when they're done. And then a list of calendar of events. So, any questions on any of that?
This may fall under administrative, any capacity issues with the pool so far this year?
No, they've been really busy, but we haven't had to turn anybody away yet, and whatnot. They've been working with the daycares now that we have our new policy in place. I think she has them with each of them where they can come 2 days a week, and they've kind of got different days that they can come. Care the first week wanted to do 3 days, and they didn't schedule a morning session, just showed up and said, no, can't do that anymore. So she stuck to our policy and explained it again, because the principal called on that, and now they're back to 2 days, and it seems to be working, so.
There's some sad kids on that one. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we just have just a couple things, what I had in the packet. Just give you an update where we're at on the library. The agreement was drafted by Siouxland Libraries and went through their attorneys for review. Just this week, I sent that agreement plus a draft one of an agreement between us and the senior center as far as what we're gonna do. Sent that to Larry this week, he's reviewed it. He just sent me some comments on it, so we'll be addressing those comments. I hope to have maybe a final draft to you guys by your next meeting. So after that, you know, we can get approval of that and we can start moving forward on it. So that's where we're sitting there. Brian Both, you know, he started on last Monday as code enforcement, so we're getting him up to speed, getting him familiar with the city ordinances and the codes. This last week, I think we've kept him really busy with grass, so we've got a lot of complaints come in on that. So he's you know, he's been proactive on his own too, as far as addressing different properties. He's come in, you know, done a little drive around and sent out all the developer letters too, just this last week too, to remind them that they still have to keep their properties, you know, mowed and so we'll keep him, make sure he stays on that. Right away with Roger Hago, so now we're talking about the right of way we need for the future street. I was contacted by an engineer from Sayers Associates who are working with Roger. Roger wants them to draw up a plat. He's looking at possibly doing some multifamily on that property himself now, it sounds like. Anyway, he wants that piece of land, because right now it's part of the trailer park, kind of just one section. He wants that replatted into its own property so he can either do something himself with it or sell it off. And the engineer says they will incorporate the 33-foot right of way in it for the city. So hopefully that's on the way. And then just the last item I have on there, Ross kind of mentioned it. Bill Hagen came to the city, and me and Craig sat down with him, with Mitch, and actually with Don Severdeen. He wanted to talk about the drainage that goes through his land. And Mark and Scott may remember this, but about 3 years ago, he came to the city. So where that Carter mechanic shop is there, Bill Hagen owns the land right next to that. Anyway, there's a drainage way that goes through there. It's the natural drainage way that flows through there. And right now it's kind of kitty quarters across his land. So he had concerns with NAP developing next to him that more drainage might be forced on it, how they were going to control that. And you know, NAP's plans have all that incorporated, how they're going to control that drainage. And you know, they've done everything to the city specs. Well then, Bill, it sounds like instead of having a kind of kitty corner across his land, he would basically, and he brought this up 3 years ago, wants to redirect that to kind of make it come straight down and over. And so what I think he was after is, wants to probably come to the city and work with us somehow to, you know, change that drainage way through there. Basically what we told them, well, you and NAPS, or CBD, sorry, have to work together on how you want to control both your drainage. If you come up with a plan that you think is viable, then you need to bring it to the city for the city council, you know, for the city engineer review and the city council to take into consideration. So right now it's in their court. We said you come to us with something if you want to. So you might be seeing something in the future. I'm not sure where that's at right now.
Is that discharge all the way over to Western? Does that go in some culverts or
No,
something?
there's some culverts that go down Oaks, and then it just charges out on Highway 38. But yeah, eventually it does go to Western.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
starts on the east side of Alvin's, runs west to Oaks, and then it disappears. I mean, you're looking at the drainage here.
Yeah, there's culverts in there.
There's culverts in there.
Yep.
Culverts go all the way west to 30.
No, they go south to 38.
South to 38.
Yep, and then it goes from there, they just open ditch that all the way down.
Then it goes west
Yep.
and south.
Yep.
To elaborate on what Teresa was saying, it was the last meeting before Bill Haugen Jr. took a seat as a city council member. He came before the council and asked for, how do I say this? City participation in narrowing and regrading the drainage on the north side of the grocery store and on the north side of the go. And the discussion at the time was narrowing that up. It was gonna make it tough to maintain, it was gonna make it tough to mow. If I recall, it was a tie, but, well, and then another part was that the city was gonna financially take part
Yep, we were.
in maintaining a private drainage way. Oh, and then, if I recall, it was a tie vote with the current mayor at that time voting to break the tie in favor of the city getting involved with enhancing and narrowing a drainage way on private property. And nothing ever happened to it. So at a minimum, I think this council needs to readdress that issue, and I don't know what the time frame is on that agreement, Larry, as far as the city participating.
I remember the motion, but was it ever reduced to writing? Do you remember that?
No.
It was made a motion, but there was no other action
He never moved
taken.
forward with it, yeah.
So, can this council consider that dead, or?
I think you ought to go back and clean it up. I want to sit and look at the motion, I follow through exactly everything that went on, and I can't remember if there were some bells and whistles tied on to it, like conforming manner, agreeable to the city engineer's office, or if we had the
I
person.
think it was more like a pat on the back and a handshake and a city pay type of deal.
So before this meeting, I did pull up that motion and read it, and I don't have it in front of me here now, it's sitting in my office, but basically, the actual motion itself was just that the city, he had presented us a cost estimate of what the work was gonna be, and basically, the motion was that, we will pay half of that cost estimate. And then he never ever did the project.
Which was him paying
So
the other part.
that probably isn't even a viable cost estimate anymore. I would say, since it's been 4 years, I mean, I would think, but
It's always,
I don't know.
it's odd that I remember so many details about that.
The tie vote, that's impressive.
Oh, I wasn't.
He was right on that. It was 3-3, and it was broke by the mayor, yeah.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I remember it. Well,
Okay. I'd like to, I think we should review those minutes at least and see how that all falls in there. If we didn't have any action at future council meeting to overturn anything that's out there,
we need to look.
we need to look at it.
I think what you do is you notice it, if you're gonna do it, and you send him a letter, here's what we're doing.
At minimum, since he's brought it up again, we should.
I say, basically, what we told him in the meeting is that, because it sounds like now he wants Eberdeen's to participate in some of it too as well and whatnot, and basically it sounds like he has a different approach. So what we indicated with him is, well, you got a new plan, you need to come to us with a new plan. I told him, I got a completely new council, that, you know, these aren't the same people that approved the past one or whatnot. You come to us with your new plan and so that's what we told him at the meeting.
Okay.
And the one thing I didn't have in there that I was just gonna note, so you notice the minutes aren't getting on the website, and we've been very busy, but we did try to put them on there, this last week, and, you may notice the marquee's not changing. The computer that controls those two things is dead. We've had our IT come out and look at it, we can't get into it, and it's probably a 10-year-old computer. I mean, it's very, very slow to do anything, but it was doing, you know, those things. It's just beyond repair. We do have in the budget though for a new computer, which I think we will utilize as a finance office computer and use that computer as this one to control the other ones. And I've talked to our IT about that, and they said that would work perfectly well. So we've got that one on order, so as soon as we get that one in and get everything switched around, things will be going. So if you get any comments about the marquees not changing or whatnot, that's the issue, yeah. So just wanted to note that for you. That is all I have. Any more questions?
No? All right, thank you. All right, old business. This item up is review job description for road recreation director. Do you have a motion to table?
I make a motion to table it.
I wanted that to come from
You were the second?
All right. All in favor?
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Next up, oath of office, Mark Brennan, Ryan Horn, and Scott Nelson. That party.
I've got the oath of offices here. You guys want to read them?
Are we having
Pictures
cake?
taken? Let's see, do you want your pictures taken?
Carry canned coffee.
All right, how do we normally do this? Does he go ahead and read it?
Usually they read it, they gotta hold their hand up, read it, yeah.
Oh, wait, to the flag.
There you need to stand by the flag.
We're not gonna, I don't want to be in the picture.
Mr. Nelson.
Thank you.
There you go. You gotta hold up your right hand and read your oath.
I, Mark Brennan, having been elected to the office of Councilperson Ward 1 within the city of Hartford, in said county and state, do solemnly swear that I support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the state of South Dakota, and the ordinance of the said city of Hartford. And that I will faithfully and impartially, to the best of my knowledge and ability, perform all duties of my said office of Councilperson Ward 1. Subscribed and sworn to me on this 6th day of June 2018. That's Teresa.
All right. I, Ryan Horn, having been elected to the office of Councilperson Ward 2 within and for the city town of Hartford, in said county and state, do solemnly swear and that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the state of South Dakota, and the ordinance of said city town of Hartford, and that I will faithfully and impartially, to the best of my knowledge and ability, perform all the duties of my said office of Councilperson Ward 2.
All right. I, Scott Nelson, having been elected to the office of Councilperson Ward 3 within the city and town of Hartford, in said county and state, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of South Dakota, and the ordinances of the said city town of Hartford, and I will faithfully and impartially, to the best of my knowledge and ability, perform all duties to my said office of Councilperson Ward 3.
to sign those and return them to me so we can file them.
Thanks, yeah.
It's a done deal.
Now you get back out.
All right, new business, election of council president. So start that out by taking nominations.
Make a nomination for city council president to be Mark Monahan.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion. Got a nomination and a second. We don't have to vote on the nominations, but if there is another nomination, we go to the table of that now. And we vote on if there's multiple. Does that make sense?
I'll make a motion to cease nomination.
Second.
There we go.
And
Cast unanimous.
Cast unanimous ballot.
My bad.
Right, Larry? That'd be a one vote
No,
then,
it's
right?
okay, made the motion that nomination cease, and Travis said correctly that the second portion of that should be and cast a unanimous ballot for Mark Monahan as vice president of the council.
so if you want to add that to your motion.
I would like to add that.
You would like to add that?
Do that.
I would still like to second that.
That's,
Second.
I agree with you.
Okay. All right.
Practicing, we do go now.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Abstain, there we go.
Thank you, gentlemen.
There you go.
Means a lot coming from you five.
Boy, that sounded sincere.
All right, next item up is election of council vice president.
Make a motion to nominate Scott Nelson for city council vice president.
Second.
I'll make a motion to cease nomination and cast a unanimous ballot.
I'll second that.
Good job. All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
One abstain. Any opposed? Congratulations, gentlemen.
Yep.
Good deal. All right, the next two things up are review proposed grading permit and review proposed construction permit. You might have to give us a little background on these, whether.
Okay,
if
so,
we- yeah, how big of an item these are, I guess.
so with our new subdivision regulations in place, it states in the subdivision regulations that you need to acquire construction permits now and grading permits. So that's part of it. We've never had these before. So our subdivision regulations, you know, were kind of modeled after Harrisburg. They were drafted by Stockwell's. Harrisburg has adopted them, and so I asked them to send me what they are using for grading and construction permits. And so they did that. So I kind of, the permits that are in your packet are modeled after that. Presented these to the P&Z board, so they did review them and talk about them. They were the ones that attached the cost on it that you see after their discussion. That came from Harrisburg. They decided to put that fee on them, so you know that's totally open up to you guys too if you want to go with that or not. But like I said, we've never had these before, so we do need to adopt what the permit's going to be. So once subdivision regulations are effective, which will be later here in June, we will have these permits ready to go.
I read through both from Teresa and I like them. I'm just curious, we're at the high end of the fee.
We are.
And
Yes, and I
I'm
clicked
curious
the comparison.
why that came about, I mean, that matches the highest fee in the region.
Yep.
And I'm curious where that number came from.
And that is, we don't have any of our P&C guy. I mean, that is what they thought was fair. You know, Eric talked kind of a little bit on it being a contracting business, that should be what the set fee is. They did match
Eric
Harrisburg's.
Barton?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, okay.
Yep. So, and they talked about, you know, like, let's take the first one, for example, the grading permit that we're talking about, you know. On top there, it says, any project that's over 25 cubic yards. That was discussed too by the P&Z board and set by them. You know, we didn't want to have these little teeny projects having them to, you know, we didn't want a homeowner to be moving dirt for his garden to come in and have to get a grading permit, you know. So these are going to be significant projects. And it also states in there that if you did get a building permit, say for your house, or a flat work permit, if grading is covered under any other permit, which it would be for a house, because you gotta do grading that, you don't need to get this grading permit. This is just if you are just going to do a grading project.
How much will
So it'd be mainly for a developer.
how many cubic yards does this side dump hold, Ross? 8 cubic yards?
Give or take.
So you're looking at 3 side dumps and grading? That's substantial grading.
Yeah, it's good, that's it.
Reference, I have 5 cubic yards of dirt delivered.
You're gonna be grading multiple lots.
So, right, yeah, you're not worried about charging this high amount on
So-
solar project.
So
Right.
is this just a review, Teresa, or do you want to actually take it on?
Well, you can review it this time, think about it, and we can bring up the next one, but by the end of June, we need to have some kind of permit in place because it's gonna be required, and so I need to get something out to a contractor that comes in.
Can we make this available online?
Sure. Just bring those permits, yep.
Make motion to approve the proposed grading permit.
Second.
Say, I have one quick question about that. I just looking through here, for the work performed, like with the 25 cubic yards, it doesn't say anything about time frame. I mean, is that gonna be, some people could take it over the lifetime that they're living at that house, or it could be within a year. I mean, is there anything in there that says,
Project.
Per project.
does it say per project?
Yeah.
Any project over.
Okay.
So, you'd think this would be associated with a building permit, and that has a timeline on it, so.
But if they did get a building permit for their house, they don't need this grading permit.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and that has the year time frame.
This would just be like the guy up there that stripped that whole lot.
Vance Peterson, yeah.
Yeah, Van Peterson strips that
It'll
whole
be
lot.
Assam going, Jardines, doing their 2 cul-de-sacs.
Yeah.
They're moving, you know, a lot of dirt there, but that's what this would cover, yeah.
So like Jarding and those, are they, since they've been doing that, are they grandfathered in, or are they gonna have to come back and pull a permit?
It's not effective yet, because our new subdivision regulations aren't effective yet. So no, they did not get a grading permit. They were grandfathered in under our old process.
So will they need to then?
Once they do another
But
project,
if they're
yes.
continuing on in Kelly Point, they are,
Grandfathered in
They're
under the
okay.
regulations. of
and
it.
Assam, since is he far enough down the line that
He hasn't started any grading,
So
so
he's gonna have
this
to-
will be effective
okay.
for him. Because I don't see him starting within the next month doing anything.
Okay.
So now that I've asked if it can be online, and it says here that it must be submitted at least 24 hours before work starts, that opens us up to somebody filling it out online 24 hours before the work starts and not getting it turned into you, so you're not aware of it. Is there any?
But it does need approval.
Does it-
They're gonna have, at the bottom, we do need to approve.
Okay, fair enough, I just want to make sure I wasn't opening it up.
Right, we don't want them to just fill it out online and then we know nothing about it, like you said, right?
So are we just on the grading right now?
Just grading.
This is just,
Yep.
yeah, I wanna do them separate each.
Okay, more discussion?
So we're good with no expiration date, we're good on that? On
Good
this?
for 1 year.
It's good per project.
Per project.
Thought I seen there.
Permits are valid for 1 year from date of city approval.
Okay.
are we okay with $200, or do we think that's just?
Didn't we discuss before it was a little less?
That's a lot of dirt to be moved.
Did we discuss before it was less than that, wasn't it? Didn't we?
You can move that much dirt.
I don't think you guys discussed these at all.
I mean, what the, about the flat work, I mean.
Flat work we talked about.
Yeah.
That
We're
came
good at
before you
that.
guys.
Okay.
All right,
All right, we're gonna vote. Monahan?
Yeah.
Jones?
yes.
Brenneman?
Yes.
Keel?
Yes.
Horn?
Yes.
That means yes.
All right.
Next one up is the construction permit.
My biggest flaw with the construction permit is I would love to see something written on that that says, if you don't have one of these and you're doing work, you will be fined X amount of money. And if you do work and don't have it inspected, plan on digging it up. Because, and really, it's just to lay the groundwork, because if they do this one time, and then don't do it the second or third time, then it's really hard for them to say, I didn't know. And I think you could literally take this and send it out to any contractor that's ever done work in this town and say, this is the new thing. I would love to see those two things written on this document.
And we can do that, you know, because it's just, yeah, it said it's to remind them of that, but, you know, this is required by our subdivision regulations, so if they don't get this permit, they will be in violation of our subdivision regulations, which you can fine them for violating city ordinance. But yeah, we can put it.
I just want it on one more piece of paper so somebody can say, you know, so they can't say, well, I didn't know.
Yeah, and we put another bulletin at the, you know, bottom there saying
Yeah,
violation
it's just a
of.
bullet point.
Is it, yep, bullet point, violation of this.
We should have done all
Of course, if they don't come get the permit, they won't see that bullet point.
Well, but I mean, grading's a little bit different than, you know,
I
digging
know,
up the
but-
street.
It is, I agree with you, but man, I'm with you, I know.
I like it, I just think that there ought to be a bullet point on there that says violation of this, you will be fined and you will dig it back up. But however you make that look nice on there.
You understand why I like the web link too? I mean, you literally put our website on the application, but once you go to the city's website.
So now with the city website, we have that button, that icon that has forms and whatnot, we can put them under the forms.
All right, do we have direction on this? Do you want to?
I'm gonna make a motion to approve the construction permit with the addition of verbiage to indicate what the penalty is for construction without a permit, and with an expectation of what's gonna happen with finished construction if a permit is not taken out. Does that make any sense?
Okay, so which verbiage to indicate?
Challenge Scott Nelson there for a minute.
So do you want to set a specific fine?
I just, not necessarily, I just think it should say that a fine will be imposed.
Like referencing our city ordinance, basically.
Yeah. Well, subdivision regulations, really.
Yeah.
Fines will be administered per, you know how to make it sound pretty good.
Yeah, without this permit, it would constitute a violation of the city
Larry's already
subdivision
thinking about
regulations and could be subject to a
I'm gonna
fine.
think about it all the way home.
See, Larry's already thinking about it.
I'm
He'll
gonna
help you
sleep
tomorrow.
tonight. Haven't been
He'll
up,
call him and say, what was Mark talking about?
I haven't been up this late in years.
About 3 years ago, maybe?
How subtle was that?
Been late.
Does anybody need, do we have a second?
I say we need a
I'll
second.
second it. Okay. More discussion, anybody need to hear it back? Nope. All right, we're gonna vote. Nelson?
Yes.
Horn?
Yeah.
Keel?
Yes.
Brennan?
Yeah.
Jones?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, do we have any, one thing before we jump to correspondence. Interviews, it's not really a motion or anything like that, but interviews for the finance officer position. The date we were shooting for isn't gonna work for the candidates. And so Teresa had some suggestions about looking at Wednesday or Thursday later that we're looking at Monday of next week.
So next week, but instead of Monday, does Wednesday or Thursday work for the council?
Next week?
That's the
Yes.
13th.
13, 14?
Yes.
Either one works for me.
Wednesday'd be better for me.
Wednesday would be better for me.
Well, no. Yes, Wednesday's fine, Thursday's out.
Yeah, Wednesday'd be better for me.
All right, Wednesday. Mark?
Wednesday's.
Hang on,
Mark and Ryan.
messing this phone up. Wednesday would be better for me.
Good answer, good answer.
That's your phone.
Look at me, I'm just like you business owners.
Yeah.
Does 6:30 want to say, or 7 o'clock? Does 7 o'clock work better for you, Mark?
If everything goes all right, I should be able to make 6.
Oh, 6?
If everything goes all right, I should be back down by 3.
Oh.
But the week I'm having, that might be 9. So,
You can tell me what time you want.
we can do whatever you guys want.
Let's
6.
do 6.
6 will work.
Can we get done? Let's do
Oh, wait a
6.
minute, Scott's making faces. 6:30?
Can we compromise and go 6:30?
6:30?
I mean, if that's what it works for everybody else, I'll play it in the sandbox, I just might be late.
6:30? 6:30.
What do we have?
Makes a big difference.
3?
6:30's fine.
Okay, 6:30.
2.
6:29.
We're down to 2.
29.
Out of 3. 1.
So we'll do 1 at 6:30, 1 at 7?
Yep, that's what you want to start
Perfect.
with.
Because I do have something else that night going on, but,
Oh, that's why you want it early, okay.
right.
Yeah. One of the
Yeah.
ones
Tell
that
you
we're
what.
going to interview took another position, so we have 2 candidates on it.
You know, I'm trying to think of this because the last time we did this, I don't recall having a council of 7 people.
You didn't
Oh, they brought me in.
for the
Brought me in
finance.
early.
We had the-
We had 7?
Yeah, Jesse, you weren't.
When you hired Jesse, yes.
Jesse wasn't wearing any pants.
Nope, he was.
We got full council.
I know.
Is it half hour?
No, you didn't, because I wasn't in on the interview with you and Jesse.
Is a half hour enough for 7 or 8 people?
Let's listen up, Mark. What do you think? I mean, I think
It'll be tight, probably. It just depends on how many questions you're all going to ask.
45 minutes.
45 minutes?
That's a good.
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
45
So we get, are we at 6:30?
Yeah.
And yeah, and if it goes shorter, you can then discuss amongst
Yeah,
yourselves.
let's do 6:30 to 7:15 and then 7:15, call it a night.
Okay,
So,
okay. So Wednesday at 6:30 next time.
Wednesday, 6:30.
I'll get it posted.
okay.
Any correspondence review?
On our email.
Any
I'll make a
motions to go to
I'll make a
executive
motion to go into executive session.
session? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Monday,
For personnel, I'm assuming?
I'll be there.
For personnel, I'm assuming? Mark, for personnel, I'm assuming? For personnel, I'm assuming? For personnel, I'm assuming?
Personnel, whatever you want. I'd like
I
to
need
go
to-
for personnel. I don't know if anybody else wants to go in for anything else.
Yes. Personnel.
See you, Craig. Have a good night, Craig.
Hey, Craig.
I think we're covered if we say
Good
personnel.
See you, Ross.
I
Have a
think
good night.
personnel, I think.
Make sure they pay for being here, all right?
I'll try.
Yeah, now that.
See you, Ross.
Now,
Yeah.
yeah.
you make sure to open an open meeting notice for Monday for the groundbreaking. Yeah, have a good night.
Have a good night.
Hey, Jess, good to see you, bud.
Thanks for coming tonight.
Stop and say hi to my wife on your way
Please,
home.
please shut the door.
Scott's coming back.
Oh, Scott's on there, fine.
Well, tell you what, even though Scott's out there, let's get started. I'll be back in a minute. I assume, we're gonna talk a little bit about the third issue.
A little bit.
Yep. As we kind of went, we're in personnel and legal.
We'll wait for Scott to come back, trying to
Yeah.
say a few things.
Yeah.
First off, Mark, when you were talking, your question was perfect. I was just trying to get somebody to go, okay, let's delay this for some point in time. Your questions were great, Travis, when you said, you know, I think you were kind of threatening us, and being on the radio, and you were actually dead on, but I didn't wanna go there, and I just.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so